Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is it June 11th? And this is our regular meeting. Would everyone please stand and join us for the flag salute? Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks for joining us. Jamie is not here tonight. She had another meeting, fisheries meeting, and Eric had a middle school promotion for one of his sons. So I would like to report out on our closed session. Item 2A was student matter pursuant to Education Code 48918A. The board voted unanimously to approve a settlement agreement in regard to OH case number 202-505-0650. And item 2B, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, government code section 54956.9, D subsection 1, information was exchanged, no action was taken. All right. So we'll move on to item 3, public comment on items not on this agenda.
Yes, thank you. My name is Jay Hotchner, and I'll provide public comments on behalf of district employees who recently reelected myself and the members of our union leadership team to share their experiences, their questions, and concerns on matters of district business. 3 weeks ago, the entire cause leadership team was reelected. Actually, 5 weeks ago now, the entire cause leadership team was reelected by CUSD employees. And as we prepare for another 2 years of service, the majority of our current district officials and senior administrators appear to misunderstand the critical role an employee union plays in the healthy operations of a public school district or similar organizations such as ours. Therefore, CAUSE's elected officers invite district leadership to join us for a transparent discussion pertaining to the basics of that relationship and how CUSD, its students and families can benefit from the opportunities that come with a unionized workforce. We could discuss how our federally legislated and protective role serves district students and families, how systematically including the professional experiences of all levels of the organization promotes sound and well-informed decision-making, how collective bargaining enhances our ability to accomplish the mission by enhancing our understanding of the critical roles that exist in the organization. How properly updated, clear, and easily accessible collective bargaining agreements bring clarity to the daily operations of the district. How clear contract language ensures that the needs of the organization are clearly understood by those who work directly with the students and the families. And how the agreements and provisions in the contract can be used to depersonalize conflict and efficiently navigate challenging scenarios. The employees of the district have clearly demonstrated that they do not wish to change the leadership structure of the union. Therefore, we enter into another 2 years of partnership, ready and willing to be the fully vested partners that the law not only allows but encourages. With the most recent clarity and direction provided by the California Public Employment Relations Board, the CPC, the Santa Barbara Superior Court, and with the recent fact-finding settlement that resolves contract bargaining through the 25-26 school year, an opportunity for a reset is upon us. It is an opportunity to move forward together, rowing in the same direction, minimizing legal conflict and expenses, and making decisions that are informed by the experiences of those who serve at all levels of the organization. Please consider what's best for students and their families in the community, and raise your hand if you're interested in maximizing the benefits of that opportunity. Rather than simply occupying positions of leadership, are you capable or even willing to practice leadership? Leadership is a practice, not a position.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Ochsner. Okay, any more public comment not on this agenda? Jan, is this about family school?
It's about my retirement.
Okay.
And just a bit about family school.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, because
Okay.
because those, if it's going to be family school, we can talk about those during E. But if it's your retirement, please go ahead.
Okay, it's a little compilation of both.
That's
so-
fine, that's
Okay,
fine.
all right. Good evening, CUSD board members and Superintendent Diana Rigby. On the eve of my official retirement, I'm Jan Silk, by the way. On the eve of my official retirement, I wanted to be sure to personally thank you all for the opportunity to teach here in Carpinteria for the last 20 years. I so value all the relationships with my colleagues, community members, and local businesses that grew over the years in support of me and my students at Carpinteria Family School. It's been an exceptional joy to teach at Family School. As you know, Family School is a special place with a powerful and strong parent body. With students at the center of each experience, parents are constantly proving a deep commitment to the classroom and to student growth, not only in academics, but also through consistently engaging our students in compassionate communication, yoga, gardening, art, cooperative games, music, environmental education, creating musicals. As the California Coastal Cleanup leaders for the past 18 years at Jelly Bowl Beach, and the revered Family Friday, a weekly gathering of the entire school body supported by teachers and parents, leading activities of which students get to choose. With Family School's 22-year legacy as a school, it is not only our students that have prospered year after year, family after family, committed to this unique school experience where they can grow and share their own gifts and talents, but I too have prospered, growing my own gifts and talents. We've been so blessed to all have each other. I feel really grateful. As you now approach budgetary decisions, I ask that you keep options open in this district so to offer choice in an attempt to retain those families with diverse needs and unique priorities. Education is clearly not a one-size-fits-all, and Carpinteria Family School is a beacon of light at the very heart of this community. Thank you for your hard work and your time.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Good evening, Julie Sigwart here, and I'm here to ask Andy Schaefer if he's going to resign tonight.
No.
No? So you lied to me when you said that you were going to resign if you lost the court case. Is that correct?
I didn't,
You emphatically said yes. I said, if you lose this, will you resign? And you said yes. You did not hesitate. We've spent $1 million since then. Yeah, well, I mean, plus you have to pay whatever it is that you're going to have to pay to him. This money could have been better spent on things like keeping teachers employed. Now, the first casualty of this craziness of spending $3.5 billion plus, we see it in, eliminating Family School. But that's been a long time in the making. You got rid of Leslie Gravitz. She was doing wonderful, and, you said to me straight up, it's time for a change, new blood, whatever. And in the Measure U committee, there was a whole plan for Family School to have its own entrance and so forth. That got wiped out. All of our input just got pitched out the door. We also said that Summerlin School would require a lot more funding than was put in the budget for Measure U, because it would have to be built up from the ground up. And that's what happened. It has overrun the budget by over $5 million. How much money are we going to just keep wasting on things? I don't know that there could have been a better solution for Summerlin School, move it to main school, retrofit that school. I don't know. But I do know that there are a lot of decisions where public input is just pitched out the door. You don't care what we think. You're just going to do what you're going to do. And you pursue the legal thing against Hotchner when I told you it was going to fail. It failed. I don't know if you're going to continue going in that route, but it's going to continue to fail. Why do you do this? Be genuine to your word. You got to do a lot better You got to do a lot better. I do not like seeing family school being removed. You told me specifically over the years, we're not going to remove it, we're not going to remove it, we're not going to remove it. This year, K1 gone. Next year, Jan's retirement gone, 2 of 3. And then what? Lori Lead retires, and hey, that's the end of family school. We solved that problem. I am just really torn up over this, and I want you guys to do a lot better than you're doing. Thank you.
If this is about family school, we're going to have that discussion during the budget.
I'm going to make comments during the budget as well. It is
Okay,
about family
alright.
school. It's probably more broad than that as
Okay,
well.
all right.
So hello again. My name is Jessica Petrillo, and I'm a parent of 2 children, one currently attending family school and one incoming kindergartner who I had hoped would join in the fall. This is my 3rd time at the podium talking about family school during public comment for items not on the agenda. And I'm not alone. Families and other community members have spoken at every single board meeting since February, when we first learned about possible cuts to family school. You've heard us talk about what the school means to our children and our community. You've heard about the academic success, the kids who thrive in its differentiated model, and how family school has served as a critical option for families when other school sites haven't worked. We've shown up ready to collaborate. We've sat down with board members, talked through the budget, acknowledged enrollment concerns, offered solutions, and done outreach to ensure that more families know about family school. We've discussed class configurations, trying to find workable ways to include incoming 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders. But after months of these efforts, and despite all these public comments and engagement, this item has never been placed on the agenda. We keep hearing that the decisions, like removing 2nd and 3rd grades, are being made through the budget process. But that's not transparency. Major changes to a public school structure should be agendized and publicly voted on. And honestly, it's hard to hear enrollment framed as a reason to cut family school when the district itself has done things to actively discourage it. This year, family school was removed from kindergarten enrollment forms, and families are still in the dark about which classes will exist next year. These unknowns are driving families away, very engaged families at that want to stay in the district, but feel that they're being left with no choice. I don't know if you're aware of the tearful goodbyes that have been happening or the uncomfortable conversations between parents and between kids saying they still don't know what their plans are for next year. You are our elected officials. We rely on you to make hard decisions, but make them honestly and with public input. I hope you'll see that there is a large community of engaged people who care about our public schools that are watching and should be part of the process.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jack Moore, and I'm a parent of 2 students in the district, a daughter entering 4th grade at Carpinteria Family School and a son entering kindergarten in Canalino's DLI program. I'm here to speak tonight about the challenges CFS parents have had with the lack of communication and transparency from both the board and the superintendent about the future of our children's school. Parents have been struggling all year to put together puzzle pieces about the fate of our children's school. CFS is known for having highly engaged families, but the district and superintendent have actively chosen not to engage with us at multiple points. The district could have engaged parents in the spring of 2024 to let us know there was lower than usual registration for CFS for this school year. Instead, potential CFS kindergarten and 1st grade parents were notified just weeks before this school year that there would be no K1 class. Over the fall of 2024, CFS parents were planning outreach activities to encourage families to consider signing up for CFS on their kindergarten registration, only to find out when kindergarten registration paperwork came out in early 2025 that the option to enroll in CFS was removed, effectively eliminating the K1 class. With the retirement of the 2-3 teacher at CFS, parents have been concerned that the district intends to eliminate this grade level as well. Parents have had little response to repeated efforts to reach out to members of the board and the superintendent about this issue, and despite having parents attend and speak at every USD board meeting since early 2025, have not had our school's fate presented as an agenda item at the board. The actions of the board and the superintendent have not reflected the standards of accountability our district and schools require as public institutions. That means that important decisions about things like the fate of our schools need to happen out in the open and not behind closed doors. To be honest, as a parent of a child at family school, I have little hope that this board has taken any of our feedback to heart or that a decision has not already been made in secret to eliminate our school. I believe deeply in the value of public education to provide all children an equal opportunity to a high quality of learning and appreciate the amazing options we have in Carpinteria. I have no doubt that my son will get an excellent education in the DLI program, or that my daughter would thrive in the general education program at Catalino Elementary. But I'm quite shocked by how easily this board seems to dismiss CFS and the high quality of education it provides. Over 2 decades, our dedicated teachers, educational assistants, and families have put tremendous effort into creating a strong learning environment and a community around CFS, and it appears it'll be eliminated without so much as an item on this board's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, hello. For those in the room that don't know me, I am Angel Pineda. This year I've been lucky enough to be the student representative for Carpinteria High School. And throughout this year, I've seen a lot of things in this room. Tons of people come in, from the little kids that we have in all our schools, and even to adults and parents. It's been amazing. And I've been part of this district for supposedly 2,380 days now. And that's really, really good. I've been here since kindergarten. But the only thing that worries me is that today was the day where students could go back to their elementary schools and go visit them. I didn't go, but I didn't want to go because I didn't like them or anything. It's just that they weren't there. Unfortunately, I've seen over the past 12 years of my education that some of our teachers aren't the same teachers that we had. The teachers that are here only stay for a couple years and then move on. Unfortunately, I really want to bring it to you, as I think many other students and faculty, and I believe parents as well, believe that our teachers should be staying far longer than the 2-3 years that they unfortunately are staying. But for many reasons, these teachers, they have their own personal lives. They have their own budgets. They have their own stuff that they have to deal with. And a lot of this is about pay. But I come to you today to tell you about the things that teachers have to do, the responsibilities that they have, the weight that's carried on them, unfortunately, sometimes isn't met by their pay. I wasn't a part of Aliso or family school, but I was part of Catalino and the middle school, and now finally Carpinteria High School. And I've seen the weight that some of these teachers have. I've seen how they respect one another and how they can sometimes disrespect one another. But I come here to tell you to listen to your community, please. I've seen you guys do amazing things, all the stuff that you guys have done, all the good and the good sides that should be seen from students. But being here as a student member, I see what people say, and it changes how people view things. And I believe it changed how I view things, but I focus only on what I can truly say is that you guys have done a really good job for being the elected members that you are. And I believe that you can do so much more with your elected power. And I hope that all of you continue being here for many more years and doing all the things that you believe is best for Carpinteria United School District. As, hey, maybe a couple of years, 4, 6, maybe 8, I'll be back here and I'll be under your boot. But I'll be here teaching and prioritizing education, which I believe each and every single one of you right there on the podium or right there in your seats, for those who aren't here, and I believe that's what you strive for, education. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Angel.
Okay, we will move on to approval of the minutes from our last meeting of May 28th.
I move to approve the minutes.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any public comment on our minutes from last meeting?
Okay, let the minutes show that nothing either legally or administratively prevented the school district from agendizing their approval of the impasse fact-finding agreement at the May 28th school board meeting. At hour 1:44:10, when Board President Diamond attempted to explain the district's failure to approve and even agendize the impasse agreement, the public was treated to a fascinating display of soliloquy. Let the minutes show that in failing to agendize its approval of the impasse agreement on May 28th, CUSD dropped the ball, seemingly quite intentionally, further demonstrating the 2 years of displays and obstruction that characterized the district's participation in the bargaining process that seems to mirror what's going on with Carpinteria Family School in that discussion. Let the minutes show that the impasse agreement could have been approved several weeks earlier had the district not arbitrarily and secretly removed previously agreed to terms before signing the agreement. Fortunately, union leadership caught the district's effort to strip previous commitments from the agreement, but not before 6 more days were lost, and the intervention of the state fact finder was required. The agreement eventually finalized on May 15th, still 11 days before the last board meeting. CUSD was notified about the ratification process. It was notified that the outcome would be communicated prior to the board meeting, and as assured, it was notified prior to the board meeting. More on all this later. Let the minutes show at hour 1:41:49 that Mr. Schaefer once again violated the Brown Act by interrupting and arguing with public speakers. After over 15 years on the school board, does anyone believe that Mr. Schaefer does not understand that he has a procedural opportunity to respond after a public speaker has finished commenting? Of course, Mr. Schaefer rarely does respond when he's permitted. Instead, he chooses to interrupt, overtalk, and distract during the public comments themselves. But let the minutes show that Mr. Schaefer's interruptions provide little cover for his performance. Rather, they demonstrate his hot-headed contribution. And Mr. Schaefer, to be clear, not everyone in the community is intimidated by you. Let the minutes also show at hour 1:20:20 that Ms. Rigby recognized CHS science teacher Mandy DeWitt for being chosen as one of the Carlston Outstanding Teachers of America. Ms. DeWitt deserves every bit of that recognition and more. Perhaps next time, when Ms. DeWitt and the science department she leads propose improvements to better serve Carpinteria High School students, Ms. Rigby won't reject each and every one before even reading the document thoroughly. Employees were not surprised to hear Ms. Rigby associate herself with the recognition that teachers have earned, while simultaneously dismissing their experience, feedback, and suggestions when it's time for shared decision-making. Thank you.
Okay, any more public comment on, or any comment on our agenda from last meeting? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda and consent agenda, item 5. And I would like to amend that to move E6 and E7 up to just after E2, the budget presentation. We moved up a couple items. Do we have any public comment on the agenda and consent agenda?
Okay, so this evening, the consent agenda is again being misused to advance the business of the district without transparency or sufficient community oversight. CUSD is not permitted to push through items of significance which have not previously been brought before the public in open session. Therefore, union leadership asked that the district remove consent agenda item number 2, the agreement between CUSD and Grand Canyon University for field placement affiliation for the next 3 years. Grand Canyon University, one of the largest Christian universities in the country, is classified as a for-profit school by the U.S. Department of Education. It has also been involved in highly questionable ethical and legal matters. In 2023, the Department of Education fined the company $37.7 million for deceiving students about the cost of doctoral degrees. Also in 2023, the Federal Trade Commission filed a federal lawsuit alleging that the GCU deceived prospective doctoral students about the cost of its program and its for-profit status. The suit asserted that the Grand Canyon University paid 60% of its revenues to the for-profit Grand Canyon Education Company. Unsurprisingly, the university and the company had the same CEO. That was illegal. Beyond the questionable ethics and legality of Grand Canyon University, it's not clear whether student teachers and counselors will be paid or unpaid, not just in the current, but into the future. In provision number 8 under paid positions and employment, the contract states GCU may allow a candidate to maintain a paid position during student teaching or SC practicum internship if deemed appropriate by the district. Does this 3-year contract allow the district yet one more way to lower labor costs by hiring student teachers and counselors who will study their craft at the expense of district students and families? Meanwhile, as CUSD fills open positions with unqualified student workers from this Christian university that again has been fined for behaving so unethically, the district continues to foster conditions that make it extremely challenging to recruit and maintain highly qualified and fully credentialed teachers and counselors. We heard Angel speak to that this evening. Under such a scenario, and while CUSD's administrative authority would be increased even further, the achievement results of district students and families are predicted to fall even further behind. Finally, why haven't any of our board members asked about the implications of signing a 3-year contract that ends with the provision in number 21 under the governing law that states the governing law is the state of Arizona, not California, folks? How will this drive up and complicate our legal costs if in the future CUSD is also burdened with similar unethical behavior on the part of Grand Canyon University? Please remove that from the consent agenda. Thank you.
Okay, any other comment on the approval of the agenda and consent agenda as amended?
My name is Blake Kent. I'm sorry, I don't know anything about the relationship with GCU and the district. I was not aware that that was a concern, but I do want to speak as a current Westmont faculty member, which is another Christian institution in the landscape of Christian higher ed, and as the son of 2 alums from Grand Canyon University, that institution, in my professional opinion, is one of the least trustworthy institutions in this country. When it went for profit, it violated all kinds of laws. It disrupted higher ed in a very dangerous way. I have investigated and understand how schools work in different higher ed institutions. I've looked at hundreds of them in the process of looking for jobs, being part of higher ed for many, many years. And again, in my professional opinion, I think that is a very problematic school. It and Liberty University in Virginia are 2 of the most problematic institutions in terms of the quality of education, access to professional, high-quality instructors. They're very secretive about how they hire, who's part of their system. I was just talking to a friend this morning who had a student visit there about a week ago, and he looked around and said, it looks like students are having a great time partying, but like this is not where I would send my kid to get an education. And I would just second that I would, that's probably the last school I would ever send my kids to. So if you're engaging in some kind of relationship with GCU, I would encourage you to investigate them very, very carefully. And if you have an alternative, I would encourage you to go with an alternative. Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't know if you want to
Let me
say
explain
anything.
why it's on the agenda.
Yeah.
We currently have an employee who is earning his teaching credential, and this was the school that he could earn that credential from, and is using the school to provide the student teaching. So it's only for his purpose that we are entering in this agreement, so that our current employee can participate in student teaching and earn his teaching credential and become a teacher from being an instructional assistant. So this is not something,
But we're not entering into an agreement with them to provide student teachers or to,
no. We're only entering into the agreement to support a current instructional assistant becoming a teacher. So if it's as problematic as it's been reported, then it's fine to pull it, and we'll report to that instructional assistant that they'll have to find another university.
yeah, I'd feel more comfortable pulling that
Sure,
from the agenda.
not a problem.
Yeah. So I'd like to amend the consent agenda. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Or is it roll call? Sorry. Sally, you want to do roll call?
Aaron?
Aye.
I'm aye.
I'm aye.
Andy?
Thank you. All right. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to
Angel.
E. Angel, this is your last student representative report. So,
Maybe public comments first.
oh, we do?
Yeah.
Okay, E, oh, sorry, I'm sorry, E. Public interest reports, presentations, public comments?
Thank you. This evening, the district has crammed 7 items under agenda item E. Community members used to have 3 minutes to comment on each item, but under recent restrictions imposed by the board, community members may comment for an average of 25 seconds per item this evening. Clearly, 25 seconds is wholly insufficient, especially if a speaker intends to share thoughtful commentary on the variety of issues contained under public interest reports and presentations. Therefore, can you please pause my time here for a moment and explain how the inclusion of the public hearings at item E5 and E7 change the speaking opportunities that exist under this evening's public interest reports and presentations?
Public hearing will be a separate item.
How does that change? Again, if we could please pause because we're seeking a point of clarification here. How does that change the opportunity for community members to comment?
You will have an additional 3 minutes to comment on the public hearing portion of the agenda.
At each of the public hearing portions, is that correct? Because there are 2, Mr.
Yes.
Schaefer, not 1.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. In that case, thank you. In that case, our comments at the opening of item E will be reserved for the superintendent's report, which contains projected enrollment data for 25-26. By the district's projections, the district's enrollment will decrease by 30 students. To the casual observer, this may be an insignificant data point, but when CUSD's enrollment data when viewing CUSD's enrollment data since the arrival of Ms. Rigby, the data suggests something maybe more significant. The last time CUSD saw a significant increase in enrollment was in 2006 after Micheline Miglies recruited. Superintendent Miglies recruited 45 additional students and had begun to transform the culture of the district. But that was short-lived. A few of you fired Ms. Miglies and then hired Ms. Rigby to make CUSD your version of great again. Since then, CUSD has suffered declining enrollment in 8 of the last 9 years, down 74 students in the last year. In her first year with CUSD, down 20 students the year after, down another 28 students in 2019, and another 32 students in 2020. Although we saw a small increase of 12 students in 2021, CUSD lost another 91 students in 2022, then another 94 in 2023, and in 2024, we dropped 5 more students and are now projected to lose another 30 by next year. Under Superintendent Rigby's direction, CUSD has lost a total of 362 students, all while the number of families and kids in Carpinteria has actually increased over the same period of time. While test scores continue to flounder, while legal costs have increased 700% annually and now exceed the cost of salaries for all classified employees, including food service workers, clerical, instructional aides, drivers, warehouse personnel, custodians, groundskeepers, maintenance, we could go on. And all while student enrollment has dropped 362 students during her tenure with the district, our school board continues to grant Superintendent Rigby an extended employment contract of over $280,000 a year.
No, we'll have a hearing for the budget and for the LCAP. Thanks. Okay, any more public comment on public interest reports and presentations outside of the 2 public hearings? Okay, now we can go to you, Angel. Thank you.
All right, as you've said before, this is going to be my last student report since I'm graduating. But yeah, we have a pretty hefty student report to give out. I'm sorry for missing out on a couple last ones, but on May 29th, 2025, CHAS held its annual senior awards ceremony. Over $500,000 was presented in scholarships to the class of 2025. We personally want to thank all the foundations, the private donors, and organizations supporting the class of 2025 for the beginning of their post-secondary journey. Today, our graduating seniors participate in their commencement practice. Following the rehearsal, approximately 50 seniors made a special visit to their former elementary schools and teachers and took a final ride on the swing set before they graduated. Tomorrow, June 11th, at the Carpinteria Valley Memorial Stadium, 139 students will graduate from Carpinteria High School. The ceremony will begin at 6 p.m. For those unavailable to attend in person. There is a the school website has a link so you can watch it from anywhere in the world. Looking ahead for this summer, CHS is excited to host its first ever summer bridge program. Next week, 20 incoming ninth graders and current ninth grade students will participate in the summer engineering program. At Carpinteria High School, the following week, starting June 23rd, another 20 incoming ninth graders will attend a culinary summer bridge program at Santa Barbara City College. This marks the second year our future CHS students will benefit from such an enriching program. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. So would you like to tell everybody what you're going to be doing next year?
Okay. I have a couple plans, but the main one is in the fall, I will be attending Fresno State to study agriculture education, to become an agriculture teacher and educator, preferably for California. I don't really want to move out of California since it's just different. I lived here all of California all my life, so I plan to hopefully come back here to Carpinteria, as you know, it's a very beautiful place. A little expensive, but I could always stay with my mom. Never went anything wrong there. So, this fall I'll be attending Fresno State, and I have most of it covered, but I'm still looking for new opportunities, and I'll be pushing myself throughout the whole time there, my 4 years, and I hope to transfer off to a different school and take the courses at the Ridley Community College, the Fresno Community Colleges there to get my GEs done pretty quickly.
Excellent.
Great, Angel.
That's great. And you're going to be working, you got your state degree this year, correct, in FFA, and you're going to work towards your American degree next year?
Yes, in FFA, I was able to get my state degree exiting my junior year, and with 2 more years of just working on my projects, I'll be able to hopefully get my American degree, which is really special. And yeah, it's going to be a lot more work than most students, but yeah, I'll hopefully be getting that.
That's great. Well, congratulations. We're really proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy, can I just say too that awards ceremony was wonderful. And I think people should know that of the 139 students, 88 or so were gold seal bearers, correct? Which means they got over a 4-point. Saying that we have some mighty fine teachers in this district and who are working very hard for our students to succeed and do well. And your class definitely showed. There were a lot of students that were going to a lot of different universities, most of whom are staying in California. But they're a great group of kids going to a wonderful high school.
Yes, and I forgot one more thing, and a little bit fun fact, but this year, got 2 fun facts. We are the first class ever to graduate on a Wednesday, which is a little odd, but it worked. And we are also the first class to ever have 2 valedictorians and 2 salutatorians, which is incredibly well. We have a lot of speeches to do, but I'm sure they're all going to be doing great when they're saying them.
Yep. Great. Well, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 2, the superintendent's report.
Great. And Angel, I'd like to personally congratulate you. We are very proud, and we can't wait for tomorrow night with a great ceremony. And thanks again for serving as the student representative. You did a fabulous job. We really looked forward to your reports at every meeting, so thank you. And I begin with congratulating the whole class of 2025. It is my pleasure to honor and recognize the distinguished class of 2025, 139 graduates. I am so proud of them and their accomplishments. Their dedication and hard work for these past 13 years have prepared them well for college and careers. I look forward to their contributions to our community and wish them all happiness and success that they deserve. I'd also like to congratulate the valedictorians, Kayla Manriquez and Richard Ramirez, and salutatorians, Anna Morrison and Aiden Alcaraz. And then I too would also like to share some comments about the senior award ceremony. Many CSH seniors were recognized for their outstanding academic achievement for the past 4 years. This year, over $500,000 was awarded in scholarships and grants to deserving students. Key scholarships included the Mission Scholars Bridge the Gap, scholarship to Carol Bautista, Camelia Martinez, Richard Ramirez, and Valeria Zamora Susano, the Linda Fairley Carpinteria Art Center scholarships to Evelyn Calkins and Madison Lane, and the Handelsman Kaufman Award to Jacqueline Santana Ramirez. Linda Fairley and Richard Finkley have generously awarded $10,000 transfer scholarships to Natalie Gonzalez and Avery Alexander, who are both committed to attending SBCC and the Promise Program before transferring to a university. We are so grateful for these generous contributions from community members who are dedicated to fostering academic pursuits and future success to our students. Appreciation. I'd like to ask you to join me in recognizing Principal Corneo, Assistant Principals Newman and Sabenis, and the CHS Parent Group for organizing all the wonderful senior activities and the senior flags on Linden Ave and Carp Ave. I'd also like to thank CMS, Aliso, Summerlin, Canalino Family School principals, office staff, and parent groups for their fabulous promotion ceremonies. Congratulations to grades 5 and 8 students and their families. Our next item is summer school, which will start this Thursday. Approximately 85 elementary students will attend United's Way Fun in the Sun program at Aliso, and then the special ed extended year program will be held at Canalino in the high school with 46 special education students. And the last item was our projected enrollment. Our previous enrollment last October of 2024 was 1906, and this year we're projecting 1,876 students. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on now to item E6. We're going to put that up ahead of the 4 and 5, and we'll have a budget presentation by Jason Caff. Thanks, Jason.
Okay, well, first, I always like to start my presentations with thanking the board for allowing me to do these. Tonight, we're going to go over the 25-26 proposed budget. So with this first slide, the core budgeting principles, we've seen this slide a few different times through the various proposed budget presentations we've done. So unless there are additional questions, I was going to go ahead and fast forward to the next slide. This slide here should also look familiar. What this slide represents is the actual reserve percentage that school districts are required to have based on your ADA. Now you'll see that right in the middle there's one that's inside of a box. Because our ADA falls between 1,001 and 30,000, the state of California requires that our reserve percentage be at least 3%. So once again, 3% is the bare minimum that we're required to have based on our ADA. Throughout this presentation, as the board is aware, we had fact-finding recently, and our consultant put together a very detailed and factual-oriented binder with some very informative slides. So we wanted to be sure that we included some of those slides in here so the board and the public could be aware of those as well. So this first slide we're looking at here is entitled Fact Number 5, which was from the 5/9/25 fact-finding binder. So on that slide, it said, quote, the district, so this is for 23-24, the fiscal year ending 23-24. The district has the lowest unrestricted ending balance when compared with neighboring districts at 3.59%, it is significantly lower than the statewide average of 24%. So basically, what this statement is telling us here is that the average unified school district in California has a reserve of about 24%. So that's the average unified school district. For 23-24, we ended up with about 3.59%. So when we look at this table here that was in the fact-finding binder, you'll see at the very top where it says all unified school districts. Once again, that's the average for the state of California. So top right, the average unified school district has a reserve percentage of about 24%. And then about a little bit more than halfway down, you'll see a bolded title that says comparative group. So that's our comparative group that we're compared against for salaries and benefits. So the comparative group is about 16%. So in the comparative group, the average is 16%. So their fund balance is 16% at the end of 23-24. Then if you go down to the very bottom of that graph, you'll see Carpinteria Unified. And on the far right-hand side, you'll see where our ending reserve was at 23-24, which was 3.59%. So I thought that was important to share with the board and the public so they can have an idea as to where we land versus where the comparative group is as far as fund balance and what the average unified school district in California's fund balance is. On this next slide here, entitled Sample Cost of District Positions, we've seen this once or twice before, but I think it's important just to highlight the fact that there's a total cost of the district. So for example, right in the middle there, if we're looking at custodian, so for next year, if we have an 8-hour custodian, 12 months, and his or her salary is about $57,000, it costs the district more than that person's salary, basically 100%. So in addition to the salary that the district has to pay, there are also statutory benefits, PERS, for example, and also the other significant cost is health and welfare increases, or excuse me, health and welfare benefits. So in this example, the total cost of the district is the salary plus the statutory benefits plus the health and welfare, and which is in the far right there, total cost. So you'll notice that even though a custodian, his or her salary is about $57,000, the total cost to the district is about a little bit more than $97,000. And once again, I wanted to highlight that because I think that's a part that sometimes people aren't aware of, that in addition to salary, we also have a significant statutory cost and additional cost due to health and welfare, health insurance.
Why is the health and welfare less for the custodian than for the certificated?
Sure. So what we're looking at here is an example of current employees. So this employee in the budget, that's his or her salary, and according to the health plan that he or she has selected, it's slightly less.
So these are just, you actually pull these from your schedule then? This is not, so that's probably a Kaiser plan? More
Yes.
than likely?
It
Okay,
could be.
all right, thank you.
I'll switch now to the next slide entitled History of Salary Increases. So here we just have a really simple table of the salary increases starting in 21-22 and going through 25-26. So in 21-22, between both certificated and classified, it was 2%. And 22 and 23, certificated received 8, classified received 10. And 23-24 and 24-25, those were the years that were just concluded in our TA with cause, in addition to 25-26. So if we're looking at certificated, the average on the salary schedule increase is 3%. For classified, it would be slightly higher due to the fact that in 22-23, they received 10%, when certificated received 8. So we just wanted to highlight the fact that over the 5 years on the salary schedule for certificated comes in at about 3. On this next slide here, entitled our 25-26 Staffing FTE Summary, we just have listed here all the FTEs that are funded on the unrestricted side of the general fund, and also including the restricted maintenance department. So here, we have all the various positions that are funded with unrestricted funds, including people at the district office. So we just wanted to put that out there so everybody's aware what the staffing looks like on the unrestricted side of the general fund. On the next slide, entitled History of Health and Welfare Increases, we have the history starting in 21-22 and going all the way to what we're going to be seeing here shortly once we start being charged for the new rates in 25-26. So starting in 21-22, you'll notice as you just kind of peruse across the page to the right that for the past 5 years, we've seen a increase in health and welfare costs to the district. Also, I would like to add that in addition to picking up this increase, the district picks up this increase automatically. So, for example, if we're looking at 24-25, currently for a person who has the Anthem ADE and they're a full-time person, that costs the district about $22,585. Now, that exact same plan for next year, which is going to be implemented in October 1st of 25, that exact same plan is going to cost us $24,313. So that's just, so this is just for one person. So district-wide, the cost of the automatic cost the district is going to incur going from 24-25 to 25-26 comes in at around $420,000 for the district. And so once again, that's a cost that we must automatically bear to fully fund this plan. And albeit I want to share once again that we do not receive any increased funding, just to fund additional healthcare increases in the district. So I thought, so we thought that was very important because this is a cost that we're seeing year to year. But yes, and we have to keep up with it and we have to keep paying it. But we want to highlight to the board and to the public that this is extremely costly to have plans of this nature and to fully fund them because every year we're seeing tremendous increases in our health insurance.
Jason, you might want to add that 420,000 is approximately a 2% salary increase for our certificated staff.
Yes. Thank you.
All staff.
Yes. Yes. For that $420,000 district-wide, for all staff, that equates to about a 2% salary increase. So it is very significant, and the district has to bear that cost every year automatically. On this next slide here, entitled Fact 16 from the fact-finding binder, Fact 16, quote, says, the district spends the most on employee benefits. So if you'll notice there, the first district listed is Carpinteria Unified, so it's us. And per ADA, so we spend about $6,467 per ADA on employee benefits. Now, once again, if we look at our comparative group, so we spend about $6,400. Our comparative group that we're compared against for this, they only spend about $4,600. So we spend obviously more than them. And so once again, this slide is highlighting the fact that we have a very rich, very expensive employee benefit package, which the district once again must pay for every year automatically.
And again, that's 23-24.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I should add thank you for bringing that up. These various slides that we've extracted from the fact-finding binder are from the 23-24 data that is basically taken from the state-certified J90 reports. Thank you for mentioning that. On this next slide here entitled Fact number 18, once again from the fact-finding binder, it says, the district on average contributes more than other districts in the comparative group on employee health care. So once again, this slide once again is highlighting the fact regarding our health insurance. So as was just pointed out, once again, these numbers here we're looking at are from 23-24 from the state certified J90 that all public school districts submit to the state of California. So if you'll notice, there's only one district that's ahead of us in 23-24 that paid more for their health insurance, and that was Ojai Unified, coming in at $21,748. However, we weren't far behind them, mainly close to $700 less, at about $21,083. So on this comparative group that we're looking at, we're second highest as far as cost for health insurance when compared to all of our comparative group districts that we looked at in fact finding. So we're coming in at about $21,000 for 23-24. If we go about middle of the way into the chart there, you'll see one that says comparative group average. So the average on the comparative group, they spend about $14,360. So the average spends $14,360. We spend $21,000. Once again, this is 23-24. So based on this in 23-24, based on the average, we were spending about $7,000 more per employee on health insurance than our comparative group was. I think that's important to highlight because to me that's a significant number. And what can happen is whoever's in this comparative group, they have $7,000 more to do something with. So instead of putting it towards health insurance, they can allocate those funds somewhere else. And when you take that $7,000 and you multiply that by, a full-time, all the full-time FTEs that a district has, it's a very significant number. So switching to the next slide here, entitled 5-Year History of the Unrestricted General Fund. Once again, we're starting with 21-22, and at the bottom there, you'll see the various reserve percentages for each respective year. And if we just kind of go in 21-22, our reserve ended the year at about 9.6. In 22-23, we came in at about 6.4%. 23-24, once again, this is where we ended it last year at 3.59. And 24-25, we're projecting that we're going to come in at about 2.1%. Largely, the reason that's dropping below 3% is due to the salary increase that is before the board tonight for the 4% off schedule and the 5% next year. That's the reason you're seeing this drop below 3. And the projected budget for 25-26 coming in at about 5.37%. But for the first 4 years there, obviously I want to highlight the fact that our reserve percentage has been dropping. And so that's something that we need to be extremely focused on because that's, from a financial perspective, how we're judged essentially by the state of California and the county office. As I mentioned on the second or first slide I reviewed, because of our ADA, we need to keep our reserve above 3%. That is the bare minimum that we need to keep it at to be to have a positive budget.
So yeah, it will be below 3 for about a month, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then this year is over and we start next year.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. On this next slide here, entitled History of Property Taxes, this should look, once again, fairly familiar. We've seen this a few times before. It's going back to 1920, and we have the actual property taxes that we received for that year and the various percentage increase in the far right-hand column. Once again, I want to highlight there were a couple years that were aberrations in 22-23 and 23-24. We received increases of about 7.55% and an increase of about 7.79%. I believe several months ago we had a couple gentlemen out from the Santa Barbara County Tax Assessor's Office to review these and basically what's happened, what the projections look like going forward. And it's my understanding as well that based on our years before 22-23 and the input from the gentleman that we had here, that we're probably looking at 5% increases per year. So as I've said before in these various presentations, that's what we're using as a benchmark, and that's what we're projecting out each year And that's the reason you're seeing 5% represented in 25-26, 26-27, and 27-28. Now, once again, I want to mention the fact that these are projections. I don't have a crystal ball, nor does anybody. Nobody really knows what these numbers are going to be. However, nonetheless, all public school districts are required to do these types of projections. And 5% seems reasonable, given the fact that back to 1920 through 21-22, our percentage came in at about 5%. And also, it sounds like the 2 years we spoke about that were 7%. Those were basically aberrations. Those were unusual for whatever reason. And so going forward, the district's anticipating and projecting that we're going to see 5% increases each of these years. Now, a couple times a year, the district does get updates regarding what the property tax projections look like, and those are called P1, P2, and P3. So we got our P2 just a couple months ago after second interim, and so which changed a little bit, not too much. That's the reason, if you'll note here, the revenues haven't really changed much, and we will not get our final number of property taxes for the 24-25 year until August. So in August, believe it or not, we'll receive something from SBCEO saying this is what your revenue is for 24-25, which I want to highlight the fact that that's after the year is over. So after the year is over is when they tell us how much revenue we've received. So us and every other public school district in California are required to project out their future revenues based on what's reasonable, what the COLA is, and given the best information available. But when you project anything out into the future, it's going to change. So I just want to highlight the fact that, once again, these are just projections. However, nonetheless, 5% seems reasonable, and that's what we're going to stick with unless we get information otherwise from the county office. On this next slide here, entitled Special Education, once again, I think we've seen this slide a couple different times, but it's very important because it has a very significant impact on our budget. And once again, this slide here starts in 2021. And what this slide shows is the actual revenues we receive for special education, the expenses of special education, and the difference, and where that difference has to come from. So if we just go down to the last box that's kind of highlighted in a light orange color in 21-22, well, let me just start here. So in 2021, the district received about $1.5 million in revenue for special education. So we're only talking about special education.
1.8.
I'm sorry. Yes, sir?
1.8.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I was looking at something else. So revenues, we received about 1.8 of special education revenues only. However, our expenditures in that year were 5.5 million. So our expenditures greatly exceeded our revenues. And so that difference of about 4.2 million had to be made up from somewhere. And so what happens is the unrestricted general fund has to contribute money to the unrestricted side, basically to special education, to fund that difference. So if we notice at the bottom that you'll see the contribution has been basically increasing almost every year until we hit 24-25. And just looking at this year, 24-25, which is second from the right, for special education revenues this year, we're projecting to receive about $2.3 million in special education revenues. However, we're projecting our expenditures to be about 8.7. So that's a tremendous difference of about $6.4 million. So what has to happen is that unrestricted side of the general fund has to contribute $6.4 million to special education to balance the program. And I think it's important, once again, to highlight this because this contribution here that we're seeing of about 6.4 million comes from the unrestricted side of the general fund. So this comes from the same side of the general fund that basically we pay the health insurance from. We are taking money from what we could do things with otherwise, and we're required to make the contribution to special education. And it's a very significant cost.
So I think it's worth noting that how the revenues flow to the district, right? So the IDEA federal monies that are not fully funded, they're,
Correct.
I think we get about 10% of the, or 11% of the guarantee. Isn't that about right?
It's supposed to be 40%.
Yeah, and so that flows to the state, and it's based on average daily attendance, based on the population
Yes.
of the overall population of the district, or of the state public school population. So that population number, the public school enrollment is declining statewide.
Correct.
So there's less money flowing to the state from the feds. And then from the state, it flows to the county office of education. And Santa Barbara County's public school enrollment is on decline. So the county gets less money from the state, and our district has declined. All districts in the county obviously are declining enrollment, and so we get less money than we would have, per ADA the year before. Is that
Yes.
pretty close to how the revenues are flowing?
Yep, that's, I would say,
Yeah.
spot on.
And so it's kind of a double whammy, right? So we're faced with increased expenditures and less revenue that has to be covered by basically by our general fund dollars.
Yep, yep.
But the trend, I mean, our trend, increasing number of SPED expenditures, SPED students, is mirroring that of the state and the county. I mean, I think we're slightly higher. I think we have a slightly higher rate of SPED student as a percentage of the population than the county, but
I think ours is about 16%, and the average,
is like 14.
Closer to 12%. But I think the significant factor.
But the trend line is
Yeah, the trend line is
parallel.
similar, but what's more impactful is that the nature of the disabilities that we're serving are much more significant. And that is not only in our district, but in most California districts.
That's leading to higher expenditures.
Yes, much more intensive requirements, and they're federal requirements. So it's not, we're choosing these particular programs, is that it's federally mandated that we provide services that range from nursing, occupational therapy, physical therapy, intensive mental health services, as well as special education teachers. So with all those additional services that are required, and they're federally mandated, yet the federal government does not support the cost of those services. And so unlike most educational programs, the revenue is declining, but our expenditures are increasing. So the gap has to be supported somewhere, and it comes from the unrestricted fund.
Great, thanks.
and just on the far right there, you'll notice what we're looking at, we're projecting for 25-26. Once again, our revenue is about 2.3. It's projected slightly to decrease from what we're receiving this year. And we're projecting to spend about $8.4 million. And for 25-26, we're projecting still a very significant contribution from the general fund of about $6.1 million. On this next slide here, this is a pie chart of the total general fund revenues. And you'll notice there in blue, the biggest piece is devoted to property taxes and LCFF revenues. So the district receives about 84% of all of its revenues from property taxes. And so we just wanted to highlight there, and you can see the various breakdown between federal, state, and local revenues. This next slide here, entitled "The Total General Fund Expenditures," highlights, once again in a pie chart, the respective general fund expenditures by percentage. And so there, kind of at the bottom left, you'll notice that the first line is entitled "Salary and Benefits." And so district-wide salary and benefits, cost of the district, that is about 79% of the entire general fund. Now, when we take that line, which is employees, and also we include the respective third-party providers that we have to pay for various services, and their costs are in the services and other operating line. Once we include district employees and the third-party contracted employees we have to pay, that comes in at about 85% of our entire general fund budget, once you add those two together, which once again is a very significant cost. And as we've shared several different times, and I'm sure the board knows, salaries and benefits consume by far the majority of the budget. And here, we're looking at about 85% when you consider the third-party contracted services as well. On this next slide here, this is fact number 13, once again from the fact-finding binder, highlighting numbers from 23-24. It says the district spends more on a per-student basis on certificated bargaining unit than the comparative districts. So you'll notice there on that first chart, we're kind of almost right in the middle. And so per certificated non-management salaries per ADA, we're coming in at about $6,599, whereas based on the comparative group, they're coming in at about $6,464. So with that, I'll advance to the next slide, which is similar. However, this fact number 13 addresses classified. It states that the district spends more on classified salaries on a per-student basis than other comparative districts. So here, you notice that we're represented at the very top of this chart. Classified salaries per ADA is $4,059. And based on our comparative group, the comparative group comes in about $3,132. So once again, this slide is highlighting the fact that we pay more on a per ADA basis for classified salaries than our comparative groups. On this next slide here, it's entitled the Unrestricted Revenue Budget Assumptions. So what we're doing here is we're just basically showing the revenue from this year and where we're projecting it's going to end up in 25-26. So you'll notice at the top, at the far right there, that's our revenue from our second interim from 24-25. So it's estimated actuals, which is basically second interim. We're projecting our revenues to come in at about $26.3 million. And here's where we have the increases. So we're going to project a property tax increase of about $1.5 million. You'll see that represent there. We're seeing a slight reduction in EPA, which stands for Education Protection Account revenues, of about $13,000. That's attributable to a couple things. I would say the first thing it's attributable to is declining enrollment. With declining enrollment, you have declining ADA, and also a slight reduction in our unduplicated count. So that's the reason we're seeing a slight reduction in EPA revenues there, but it's not really that significant. Below that, we're going to project a decrease in local revenue of about $166,000. That's mainly attributable to two main things. One is the excess STRS payment that we received this year, but that's not ongoing revenue, so you wouldn't include it in the 25-26 budget. And the other, the rest of the decrease in revenue is basically attributable to interest income due to the TRAN. So as the board is aware, we're going to get a TRAN for the 25-26 year for cash flow reasons, and we won't know exactly what that interest is until the fiscal year starts. So for example, this year, we didn't know what that interest income was going to be until the county posted it to our general ledger. I think this year it hit sometime in August. So hopefully in July or August, we'll know what our interest income is going to be due to the TRAN. And once we receive the information, I will input it into the budget. And so when you see the budget next time, at first interim, you'll see an increase in local revenues due to interest income from the TRAN. But at this point, we really don't know what that number is, so that's why you're seeing a reduction. Now-
And to be clear, we get trans we basically have a tran every year.
Yes,
And
that's
a
my
tran is like a line of credit, essentially, operating line of credit, that because our revenues come in at two distinct periods of the year, and that isn't quite enough to cover our ongoing cash demand.
Yes, yes. We get through property taxes, we get the lion's share of our property taxes in November, and then another big allocation in April. So, because basically we only get paid twice for the most part, as far as property taxes is concerned, twice during the year, we get a TRAN to smooth out cash flow. And like Mr. Schaefer mentioned, it's my understanding we've been doing this for years, so it's not unusual to do this at all for cash flow reasons. It's just basically for us, since we're property taxes, it's kind of like a cost of doing business. So right below the decrease in local revenue, we're projecting a slight decrease in the SPED contribution of about $122,000. So when we net all of those items I just identified up, we're projecting a total change in revenues of about $1.5 million to the positive. So we're expecting our revenues to increase about $1.5 million. And so below that in the bottom right, you'll notice that we're projecting our 25-26 unrestricted revenues to come in at about $27.9 million. So this slide here covers the unrestricted revenue assumptions. On the next slide, we go over the unrestricted expenditure assumptions. So once again, at the top right there, we're starting with our second interim expenditures, which the board saw a couple months ago. And so that second interim, we are projecting expenditures to come in at about $27 million.
Excuse me, we need the slide changed.
Oh, I'm very sorry. Okay, thank you. I'll start over. So in the top right here, you'll notice there's a $27 million figure. That's what our unrestricted general fund expenditures look like at second interim. And then below this, we're going to see changes. So the first change that we're projecting are the staffing reductions. And there in parentheses, you'll notice that we factored in 5 certificated FTEs and 10 instructional assistants. Now, below that, we have the illustration of how this works, because we have 2 different things happening at the same time, and they tend to net each other out. So, for example, from the staffing reductions, from the 5 certificated and 10 IAs, we're projecting those reductions to come in at about $1.2 million. So that'll be a reduction of expenses. That's why it's in parentheses. However, due to the 5% increase, we're going to see an increase in salaries and benefits. And so right below that, you'll see the $1 million figure. That is the increase to the unrestricted general fund due to the 5% salary increase for cause. And then so what's happening is we have the staffing reductions, which is pulling expenses down. But then starting 7/1/25, we're going to see an increased salary and benefits cost due to the 5%, and that's $1 million there. So those two are essentially kind of washing themselves out, because one's a plus, one's a minus. And so they're netting out to the net staffing reduction that you'll see there below of about $189,000. And that's the reason that you're seeing that $189,000 represented in the far right-hand side right below the $27 million figure. So once again, this is kind of a unique situation where we're reducing expenditures, but also in the same sense, we're increasing expenditures. And that's, this is happening at the same time. And so they're kind of netting each other out. And that's the reason we want to, set it straight and kind of highlight it here for the board and the public so they can see what's happening.
And the 5 certificated staff, that's through attrition, and that's two FTEs at the high school, 1 at Family School, 1 at Aliso, and 1 at Catalino.
So that's the staffing reduction section there. Below that, you'll notice there the next item is professional services, in parentheses, contracts, reduction. So we're projecting reductions there of about $683,000. Below that, we're, as I've gone over in a couple slides, for the health and welfare benefit, we're seeing an increase there, and we know what that is and why it's happening. So for the unrestricted side of the general fund, we're projecting an increase of about $223,000. However, you'll probably notice that 223 isn't the total cost of the district, because the total cost comes in at about $420,000. So what we're looking at here is just the cost to the unrestricted side. And so the remainder of the cost for health and welfare is going to be seen on the restricted side of the budget. So this is basically half of our total health and welfare cost increase. And then below that, we see some slight revisions to books and supplies. We are including another line item for vehicle replacement. That's specifically a new van. Our vans are quite old, and we need to start replacing those. So we're allocating $55,000 for a van replacement. And then we have our usual indirect costs. So when we net all of those figures together, we get a total change in the expenditures of about $504,000 to the negative, which means that our expenditures are going to be reduced by $504,000. So when we take the $27 million, we reduce the $500,000, we're projecting our 25-26 unrestricted expenditures to come in at about $26.5 million. Now, this slide here, entitled Projected Unrestricted Fund Balance and Reserves, kind of pulls together the past two slides we looked at, but more of in a summarized fashion. So starting at the top, we are looking at our projected estimated actuals ending fund balance. So we're projecting our ending fund balance to come in at about $896,000 for the 24-25 fiscal year. And then below that, you'll see that we have the projected unrestricted revenue of the $27.9 million that we just spoke about. And then below that, you'll see the unrestricted expenditures of $26.5 million that we just went over on the previous slide. And so the net change between those two is $1.3 million to the positive. So we're expecting our fund balance to increase by approximately $1.3 million. And so we're looking at, for the unrestricted general, unrestricted ending balance for the general fund for 25-26 to come in at about $2.2 million. And the percentage-wise, that would give us a reserve percentage of about 5.37%. On the next slide, we're looking at the entire general fund, but it's broken up into its distinct components. As I've mentioned before, the general fund has two distinct components. One is unrestricted, and that's represented in that first column that you see there. The other component is called the restricted side, and that's where we keep all of our restricted revenues and restricted expenditures. And then the third column over is just adding the two together. That's why we call that the total general fund. So this is just kind of a snapshot of the entire general fund broken apart by its components. So just looking just downwards on the unrestricted side, unrestricted column, once again, we're projecting total revenues of about $35.6 million, total expenditures of about $26.5 million. And then below that, you'll see a figure that's in parentheses, $7.7 million. And the label next to it says contributions to restricted programs. And you'll notice that that number 7.7 on the unrestricted side is the same number that you see on the restricted side of the budget. So what's happening is there are a couple programs that need that don't receive sufficient funding to support themselves, and so the unrestricted side of the general fund has to contribute to the restricted side. And in general, the two main programs that make up the $7.7 million are special education and routine restricted maintenance, because we don't receive any funds, believe it or not, for routine restricted maintenance. However, we have to have it. So that's basically what's consuming, for the most part, that $7.7 million that you're seeing there in the unrestricted side. So if we just keep going down, we're seeing that we're projecting about $1.3 million of revenues over expenditures. Our beginning fund balance is the 896. And once again, we're seeing that ending fund balance on the unrestricted side of about $2.2 million. And so right below that, you'll notice a box that says components of ending fund balance. So inside that $2.2 million sits our minimum 3% reserve. And so for us, that for 25-26, that's a $1.2 million figure. And then the undesignated fund balance number, that's $979,000. That represents the amount of funds that we're projecting to have above the 3%. So that's above the $1.2 million. Just going down the restricted side quickly. So we have our total revenues of $6.5 million. Once again, total expenditures, I'd like to highlight that you'll notice that on the restricted side, we're projecting $6.5 million of revenue. However, the expenditures that we're projecting come in at about 14.6. So that difference there between the revenues and expenditures has to be made up. And it's made up by the unrestricted side of the general fund making a contribution to those programs on the restricted side, which once again mainly is special education and maintenance. That's what the contribution is mainly composed of. So we're projecting an ending fund balance on the restricted side of about $1.6 million. And once again, for the entire general fund, we're looking at total revenues of about 42.1, total expenditures of about 41.2. We have excess of about 948, and we're projecting total ending fund balance for the general fund to come in at about 3.8 million. However, once again, I want to highlight, though, even though we're projecting our total general fund balance to be $3.8 million, what the state judges our fiscal stability by, and the county office as well, is the number that's listed on the unrestricted side. So they only will effectively financially make decisions based on our reserve percentage, and once again, they only look at the unrestricted side of the general fund for our fiscal stability and our positive certification. On the next slide here, once again, this is a very important slide because all public school districts are required to do multi-year projections. And then in those projections, you're required to do the budget year and 2 years out. And the reason, once again, that we do these projections is that we take the best information we have at this time and we project out our revenues, like I've gone over, and also we project out our expenses. And we do this exercise just so we can have an idea where the district is heading financially. That way, if somebody sees a problem in the out years, you have sufficient time to take corrective measures to hopefully mitigate or eliminate that potential issue. So going back to the slide here, you'll notice that the first column here is entitled Estimated Actuals for 24-25. So at the very bottom there, you'll see that our reserve balance, we're projecting to finish the 24-25 year at about 2.1%. And once again, this is factoring in the increased salary costs due to the recent settlement, which the board will see in a couple items later on the agenda. So those numbers have been factored in, and that's what we're projecting after we factor in those costs. And then in 25-26 is the next column over. You'll see there's the reserve balance of about 5.37, which we've seen on a couple other slides as well. And then we continue projecting out 26-27 and 27-28. And I do want to add that on the revenue side of the house for these projections, like I've gone over in the previous slides, I've included the additional 5% in property tax projections. I've included those increases in these numbers. And on the expenditure side, I've also included costs due to step and column and COLA. That happened kind of automatically just due to cost of living, so forth. So those variables have already been factored in. And when we've done that, for 26-27, we're projecting 9.28%. And for 27-28, we're projecting 15.1%. But I do want to highlight, and that's why I have stars indicated there, that once we hit 26, 27, we'll be back to bargaining again. And so I do want to highlight for the board and the public the fact that there are no negotiated salary increases in 26, 27, and 28 because we'll be negotiating again. And once we do, those percentages and the respective expenditures and salary benefit costs will change. So I just wanted to highlight that for the board. And just as a kind of to pull it all together, in 27, 28, we're projecting 15.1%. However, I just want to mention the fact that if we go back to kind of the first couple slides we looked at with regard to unified school districts, the average unified school district in 23, 24 had a reserve percentage coming in at about 24%. So in 27, 28, if we're looking at 15, that's still fantastic for us. But once again, in comparison, the average unified 23, 24 once again came in at about 24%.
I think I'm glad you pointed it out because I was going to as well because, that isn't a very large number. When with a budget that is very, our budget's not that significant. So that amount of reserve can be used up rapidly.
Very rapidly.
With unknown expenses. So,
Yes.
I don't think any of us would be comfortable had this, we've fallen below 3% for half the year. But because it's, we're pretty much at the end of the year, it's doable. But even 5% is much lower than I'm comfortable with. And I think that in years past, that's why the board, that's why we, passed a resolution and a policy
Yes.
to maintain a 10% minimum reserve.
Yes.
We knew that we would fall
Oh,
below
I
the
know we did.
3%
Yeah, no,
for the salary.
We
raises.
had
It
that
was
discussion
intentional.
in negotiations.
Yeah, it was
and
intentional.
It was, I know it was.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, no, I know it was. I'm trying to acknowledge the fact that we're aware of it. It's just, we're still not comfortable.
So this slide here for the multi-year projection, this is the last slide I have for this presentation. I'd like to open it up and ask the board if you have any additional questions.
Any questions? Aaron?
So, we talked about the loan, basically.
Yes.
So if we were maintaining a 25%
Any reserve balance?
reserve, we wouldn't need to take that loan.
That is an excellent point, yes. If we had 24, 25% reserve, we would have sufficient cash in our fund balance, and there would probably be no need at all to get a tran. You're exactly right.
So the Tran, we're basically paying prime plus a little bit?
Yes, I think in addition to paying back the principal and some interest, there are tran issuance costs, and I think for this year they came in at about close to $175,000.
That's interest and
Yes, like
fees.
Yep, interest and fees and all the
Okay.
other issuance costs that go along with issuing a tran and all the hoops that
So
various.
it's not an insignificant amount of money.
No,
That's,
not at
that's
all.
about a three-quarter COLA, more or less. Yeah, cost of living.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think, again, I appreciate the fact that you included the data that we used in fact-finding, because it's solid, it's all coming from the state.
Correct.
It's not like it was being cherry-picked. And it was surprising to me that I knew we spent a lot more on health and welfare than on our benefits than other districts.
Yes.
But I didn't realize it was that much more,
Yes.
I think it's interesting to note that the only district higher than us is Ojai, and I believe they got taken over by the state, and those benefits I think have been reduced.
Yeah, I'm
And,
not sure.
and I know that most of the rest of them have a fairly, I believe that there's a cap on the district contribution. And you'd note that ours has gone up from 23, 24 has gone up almost $3,000 from this point.
And
Most districts in our county, the average contribution is about 18,000
Yeah.
for next year, and we're at 24.
Yep.
So that's a $6,000 difference.
and then just once again, just to highlight that, so that difference is something that we are allocating towards health and welfare, whereas other districts can take those funds and allocate them somewhere else.
Typically, that's allocated towards salaries.
Okay. You guys all good? No more questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to item E7, a public hearing in regard to our proposed budget. And I would like to open the hearing to public comment. So if you have comment on the budget, please step up to the podium.
Alrighty, thank you, Mr. Caff. The budget presentation tells the story of overestimating expenditures and underestimating revenues. And slide 12, if you'll please go to slide 12 for us, that would be helpful, is a perfect example of this. CUSD did this when it decreased to otherwise realistic projections for property tax in January 2025, slide 12. Instead of recognizing the increasing revenues trend over each of the last 5 years and projecting a 7 to 8% property tax revenue, CUSD lowered the projections to 5%, and then by doing so, it pulled approximately $4.5 million out of the projected revenue stream. Then the district alleged that there was no money for employee salary increases and valuable programs that directly increased achievement, such as the District Gate program or the previously robust Carpinteria Family School program that actually still delivered the highest achievement data in the district while being underfunded on a per pupil basis by over 40% less than the state average. Bravo to the family school. Yes. These projections here are unrealistic. Carpinteria's property tax revenues are anticipated to come in well above the average Santa Barbara County revenue projection. Every metric in the county suggests the South County, as always, is driving up averages. That the South County has shown strong sales growth in the first half of 2025 is also an indicator. February was 54% higher than February of last year. March was 61% above last year, March. And May sales are 41% higher than the year before. The California Association of Realtors compares counties in the state, and Santa Barbara is by far the leader, specifically boosted, quote, by the southern Santa Barbara County, Santa Barbara, Montecito, and Carpinteria. But this is the game our district officials play, underestimating revenues and overestimating expenditures, and it serves to mislead the community about the actual revenues CUSD anticipates receiving. As a basic aid district, CUSD does not have a revenue problem. In comparison to our operating budget, CUSD is in the top 4% of the most robustly funded school districts in the state. Although more revenues certainly wouldn't hurt, CUSD's problem isn't revenue-based, it's expenditure-based. And it is a direct result of the 700% increase annually in legal costs under Ms. Rigby's tenureship with the district, with specifically $3.5 million squandered in the last 2 years trying to silence elected employee leadership, representatives, and voices. Ms. Thomas, could you please join us at page 5? These numbers are about as accurate as the rest of the
Thank you, Mr.
propaganda
Hochner.
and cherry-picked, certainly
Thank you,
cherry-picked.
Mr.
This
Hochner.
is a shame. 3 minutes. Thank you.
So I'd just like to clarify that the 5.23% is based on the county P2 reporting. Those are real numbers. It's not an average, and those who were in attendance during the assessor's presentation, Mr. Hochner, Ms. Ferguson, Mr. Stout, all had the same information we did. The assessor said, they're not projecting any more than 5% increase for us. So these aren't numbers that we're choosing. These are numbers that the county is telling us to use. Okay, so any further comment on the public hearing?
Good evening. My name is Rachel Kent. I'm mother of Caspian, a first grader, and Rillian in TK. And I'm speaking to you as a family school parent. I've spoken here before a couple of times over the last several months, along with some of the other parents that are here tonight. Quite frankly, I'm surprised and disappointed that there hasn't been a formal agenda item about the planned budget cuts that will end up eliminating the family school. This is unacceptable. Making a choice not to hire a teacher for the 2nd and 3rd grade class is not purely a staffing adjustment, it's eliminating grade levels at a public school. This kind of major programmatic cut needs to have a separate agenda item with public input and a recorded vote. When the staffing change happened last summer and the K-1 class was eliminated, my family was directly impacted. We were told 2 weeks before the school and reassured by Principal Quintero that this didn't mean the family school was closing. Now it's almost 1 year later, and rather than gearing up to be back in a family school class for our 2 sons, we are making completely different enrollment choices. Trustees are elected to lead with vision, not hide budget cuts behind closed doors. I ask you to make the choice to lead with integrity, transparency, and the kind of leadership we want to model for our kids. You may choose to approve a budget tonight, but if that budget includes removing teachers from the family school without reassigning a teacher in their place, the public has a right to challenge how that decision was made and whether it violates the Brown Act. Please do the right thing. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alyssa Margolin, and this is my daughter, Zuri. She and her brother have attended family school for the last 3 years. I'm here tonight to speak in support of family school and to voice my significant concerns with the way in which the school is being clandestinely phased out. As many others, my children and I have shared here before, family school is an incredible place, a unique school of choice that has fostered a rich and multifaceted education for generations of Carpinteria families. In an increasingly fractured world, family school teaches what is possible when we view each other as brother, sister, cherished neighbor, not through lecture, but by living these values. This was so apparent at our beloved Jan Silk's retirement celebration on Sunday, when decades of her past students and families honored her. My family came home so deeply reaffirmed that this is exactly the right place for us. These are the values of community and of friendship with which we choose to raise our children. We're so grateful to have had family school as a choice for our kids. Every child and family deserves an option like this. As my daughter's option to remain at family school as a 3rd grader next year has been taken away, she continues to ask why there won't be another teacher hired to teach her class. All our children continue to ask why their school isn't being allowed to continue. And we still don't have sufficient answers to give them. Dozens of letters and emails that we've written to Superintendent Rigby and the school board have gone largely unanswered. The only explanations we've received were offered in unpublicized meetings held quietly in classrooms and merely referenced an exaggerated cost for running family school and claims of low enrollment. Despite amending the budget representing family school, we've not received a clear alternate budget or other explanations for why CFS needs to be eliminated in order to meaningfully cut costs or boost enrollment. Our children deserve thoughtful, trustworthy, transparent leadership. They deserve to have open, honest communication and public discourse modeled for them, especially around issues of great importance. However, the process of phasing out their beloved school has lacked accountability, transparency, and integrity. Families have received little clear communication, and this discrepancy has left us and our children confused, heartbroken, and destabilized. The future of their education continues to feel insecure. It's clear to them and to us that their emotional and social well-being have not been prioritized throughout this process. This is highly concerning not only for our children at family school, but also for every child in our school district. It's raised a red flag regarding whether CUSD will be a reliable and robust option for our children as they move through elementary, middle, and high school. Our children and our community deserve honest answers, transparent, law-abiding processes with opportunity for public engagement and input, integrity of leadership, and school communities that value and protect their social, emotional, and academic well-being. Carpinteria deserves much better than this.
Thank you.
Hello, members of the board. I'd like to once again comment on the future of Carpinteria Family School, and particularly as it relates to this proposed budget. The budget presentation tonight shows only a budget for 1 FTE teacher and 1.5 instructional assistants for CFS, a budget that effectively eliminates the 2-3 class at CFS. One line in a budget table is not sufficient public discussion when you're eliminating an entire grade from a public school. The proposed budget buries this sweeping change, hoping that no one will notice. But CFS families have noticed, and we've been very clear on the impacts on our children, on the diversity of public schooling options in our community, and of taking away a high-performing local school. Parents have previously proposed to the board that the vacancy in the 2-3 teacher's role be replaced to maintain this successful school. We've proposed solutions for moving students into CFS to maintain appropriate class sizes, and propose supporting that through our own community engagement to welcome additional students. But the board has never provided any public response or meaningful discussion of our proposals. The board and superintendent have only made their position clear on one point. This budget has repeatedly tried to place blame on our teachers for the current budget situation through increases to their salary and their health benefits. But it's clear to working families in Carpinteria these salary increases were much needed as the cost of living here is skyrocketed. The state of California recently announced that the threshold for a low-income household in Santa Barbara County is now $98,850, a full $20,000 more than the average teacher salary in our district. Paying teachers and other staff a fair wage should not be used as a distraction on this issue. Families in our district have waited for months for the board to provide a clear response on what you intend to do with the Carpinteria Family School. I urge you to take your responsibility as public officials seriously and provide meaningful comment on the record about the future of our school. I'd also like to point out to the public that 3 of the 5 board members' terms are up at the end of 2026. Over the course of the next year and a half, I think it's important for Carpinterians and the board members themselves to be asking whether this is the right group of people to trust with the future of our children's education. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Witt, and my daughter Lendl is a 3rd grader at Carpinteria Family School. My son Dave was supposed to be in the K1 class this year. He spoke at one of the past meetings saying that he'd really like the chance to go to family school. Family school has had people speaking up at every meeting since we figured out for ourselves that you're trying to cut entire grades from our school. Your handling of this matter has put us into a vulnerable situation. So here I am, compelled to tell you how this has felt and asking, are we really not going to fight for the things that make Carpinteria special? Is this situation bigger than family school? This shows us the way your board handles things, and the way you're handling this is making us wonder what else is being handled wrong. It's making us feel like we need to fight and get the word out, because you're not. There has to be a way to preserve a program that has been so beneficial to this town and the students. It seems like you're secretly making decisions that simply make your job easier instead of focusing on the betterment of the community. I really believe there is a special symbiotic relationship between the elementary schools that gives students the ability to find their place in our community and a place amongst their fellow students. If you cut family school, you'll be cutting off a limb. I have seen many instances where students have transferred from one school to the other in order to find the right fit for that student. Cutting off the ability to navigate a new environment for each individual student's needs is cutting off a great resource. A school of choice is such a benefit to our community in so many ways. The fact that we've had to do our own investigative work to find out what is happening, and along with the fact that this past year, we didn't find out until the week before school was started that our child was not actually going to be in family school or with the teacher he'd already met, well, that was handled wrong. My son would have liked a chance to consider other options, The people should have had more of a chance to stand up for this program, but you've not given that to us. This year, the continuing secretive nature of these decisions is still disturbing. Give us a chance. Please do the right thing and make the difficult decision to save family school, no matter what the circumstances. When we put our minds to something, we are capable of more than we think. The children deserve better, and the community deserves better. This cut doesn't even solve all your problems. Thank you for your time.
Hello again. I'm Jessica Petrillo, and I'm a parent at Carpinteria Family School. This is my 4th time up at the podium talking about family school and 2nd time tonight, so these comments are really much more focused on the budget. But I appreciate all of the public comments that I've heard from my friends and fellow parents so far tonight. I understand that this budget, I just want to point out one more thing. I appreciate the budget presentation. I do want to point out just some areas that were more gray for continuity. The highlights on the staff salaries and health costs were very clear. The first budget presentation that we saw in January also had a column for the legal fees, which I found hard to see here, and it just was hard to track those between. So if the goal is to be transparent about that and stand behind those decisions, keeping those for continuity would be helpful. So I understand this budget includes staff reductions through attrition, but when that results in eliminating entire grades, 2nd and 3rd at a public school, that's not a routine staffing adjustment. It's a major programmatic cut that is being made without public agenda discussion or vote. Family School is a high-performing, community-centered program where students thrive. It's an important option for families across the district, especially for kids who haven't found success in more traditional settings. This is a program that should be supported, not quietly dismantled. When you look closely at the budget, the cost of keeping those grades at Family School is negligible. The only expense are for teachers and classroom aides. That's it. And for that small cost, the district provides a well-performing, inclusive public school open to all, a cost-effective, high-value investment. We can see on page 7 of the budget presentation that the plan buried in this proposal is to staff Family School with just 1 teacher and 1 teaching assistant. That's a fundamental change to the structure of the school, and it should not be left to a general board vote buried inside a 300-page district-wide budget. That's not transparency, and it's not good governance. We've also heard enrollment cited as a reason for these cuts, but the district has played a role in driving those numbers down. This year, Family School was removed from the kindergarten enrollment forms, and families still don't know which grade levels exist next year. If enrollment is low, it's not because families don't want Family School or to stay in the district. It's because the district has actively undermined confidence and access. That's not a justification for cuts. That's a problem the district created. Cutting these grades is not sound budgeting or good policy. It's short-sighted. So here's my ask. Do not approve a budget that includes eliminating grades at Family School. Instead, follow the no-cost solution that has been brought to this board repeatedly by parents. Reassign a teacher to replace Jan's position and keep the mixed grade model where it's already proven to work at Family School. And if the board is still considering eliminating grades, that proposal must be brought forward publicly, agendized, discussed, and voted on.
Thanks.
The Brown Act
Thank you.
requires it.
Hello, good evening. First of all, kudos to all the passionate speakers and as well as data-driven ones. I fully support Jessica's comments as well as it pertains specifically to the budget. And I wish that I could spend more of my time tonight just talking about and boiling down some of the budget concerns that is in this proposal. The last time I spoke here was in February, and it was on the topic of preserving and refunding CFS. To be clear, I'm not a parent of a child at CFS. I am a parent. Maybe someday my kid could go to CFS. That would be a wonderful option. And same for anybody who looks at CARP as a place to raise a family. That doesn't seem to be the case. That's not what the budget shows. I was not expecting the first impression I received when I was here in February. Being here amongst teachers struggling for fair, not even fair, pay and an ongoing budget crisis. sorry, I'm trying to get this mic. I talked in February about policy and how it was bad policy to downsize and discontinue CFS programming, one of the highest rated and most beloved school programs in the county. If temporary low enrollment is the challenge, or it's been cited closed door explanation, then a solution surely exists. There has to be better problem solving. It's what we teach in school. It's certainly what's taught in CFS. Budget cuts are not solutions, they're simply directives, and I think that you all know that. Therefore, I'm disappointed but not surprised to address you all again tonight after making a formal request earlier today via email to you all to agendize this matter, and tonight I'll talk about process. I'll speak directly, given how indirect the board has been in communicating CFS's fate. In plain terms, despite continuous communication from members of the public and CFS teachers and board members, and board meeting participation and providing alternate recommendations for budget savings, the CFS topic has never been put on the agenda, nor has there been any request for public feedback. You've essentially sought to bury the fate of CFS in this revised budget, an opaque line item amidst reduction titles and budget assumptions. I like details. I've tried to find them. It is hard, if not impossible, with what you've presented. If you want to downsize and shutter CFS, then please at least be direct about it. Same goes for anything else policy related. Outline your vision for what you see for education in our town, in our county. Qualify and quantify your policy decisions and communicate them in an open forum with the public. Anything less is disingenuous. It's covert at best, and in this case, worse so, you expose CUSD to even further legal issues as you risk a Brown Act violation. Why can't we talk about CFS as an issue? I mean, you can hear it in this room.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Pepper Binkley, and I'm a parent of a third grader at Cart Family School and a first grader at Canalino. We're here to talk about budget. The bottom line is important, obviously, but I want to invite you to think holistically. The first item in the proposed budget states, students and their learning are at the center of decisions. Students and their learning are at the center of decisions in the budget proposal. The board's handling of family school challenges this statement. I want to highlight some dates. We moved to CARP in August 2024. One of the reasons was family school. The week before school started, we heard that the K-1 class was to be eliminated due to low enrollment, but also budget. No mention at this time of closing family school. Then CFS heard of budget cuts in January 2025, reducing teacher numbers due to enrollment, essentially the same issue as August 24. Rigby came to a board meeting at CFS in February and said their proposed solution for budget cuts was to eliminate the 2-3 classroom after Jan's retirement. Still, no mention of closing family school. CFS parents and kids spoke at the budget meeting in February. All mentioned that it looks like family school is closing. Still, no transparency or accountability for budget from the school board. Still, no mention from the school board of family school closing in the next year. Since then, it's been whispers on the street among parents making contingency plans, kids wondering if their school is closing. My third grader saying, the district hates family school. We are new to the school district and have been blown away by our kids' teachers, Jan Silk and Rolando Ruacalba, our principal, Luis Quintero, and the community. That said, the handling of the proposed elimination of the K-1, then 2-3, and presumably 4-5 classes at family school, and the closure of family school, has led us to pull our oldest from the school district next year. We want to give him the stability that he needs following a difficult move this past year. We've had a lot of tears this year, and we've chosen to move him. Our daughter is staying. If one of your proposed concerns is student retention, you are failing. No matter the outcome, the handling of this issue has been a stain.
Your job is to be creative with the budget, to honor students and their learning at the center of decision making. Thank you.
So is that, anybody else have public comment for the hearing? Okay, thank you. I'll close the hearing. A couple things I would like to address because I think they were mischaracterized. I met in good faith twice with your parent group, and it was an open invitation to the entire population of the family school. So to say that it was a clandestine, secretive classroom meeting is very disingenuous and misrepresentative. We've had multiple discussions here at this board meeting about the budget, and they haven't been secretive. We haven't made a decision about the family school. And I think I've made that very clear in both the meetings I had with the parents, that a decision has not been made. I said it was all dependent on our budget. And fortunately, our budget is looking better. Doesn't mean that things are gonna go back to normal at the family school, but a decision has not been made. And for that very pointed and you know, almost insulting accusation to this board that we're doing things secretively and closed doors behind the scenes I think it goes against everything that I've represented to you. I think most of this board as well. But one of the things that has really kind of bothered me about some of the proposed solutions is that you're essentially asking us to discontinue a class at another site in order to reassign a teacher at the family school. And that's not fair to anybody as well. And, excuse me, sir, watch your language. And that's exactly a reassignment of a teacher. And so I just want to, you know, I'm happy to meet with everyone again. And we're not, okay.
Why isn't it on the board agenda? Answer that question. Why has it never been a board agenda item?
Okay, so this isn't going anywhere. I'm trying to address some of your concerns. I'm happy to do it with the parent group. I think any one of us is. But as far as the closure of the family school, that decision has not been made. And
There's one central concern. It's the agendizing it. It's making it public forum. That's what everybody's communicating here.
Okay. I appreciate everyone's comments. And we are going to move on. I think we have to actually approve the first reading of the budget. Is that correct, Monica?
It's just the first reading.
Yeah.
You're not making any decisions today.
Okay, just the first reading. All right, thank you. Okay.
Andy, may I clarify for a moment?
Yeah, please.
So appreciated you coming to speak with us, and I actually...
You can step up to the podium.
We so appreciated you coming to speak to us at Family School twice, and I actually came up and thanked you publicly in one of our meetings. This is my fourth time speaking at these meetings. My second or third, I came to publicly thank you, and that's all I said at the podium. We really appreciated it. When you first presented us with a budget representing Family School, it included school counselors and several other line items that aren't a part of our school budget. So we asked you to go back and take a closer look. You came back and presented us with different data, but it still didn't provide us any clear understanding for why our very small school budget that accounts only for teachers and teaching aides who will need to be accounted for whether our children are at family school or a Catalino classroom on that campus. We never understood and received clear understanding for why cutting our school helped solve budget problems. And so when I say we had these meetings that happened in a small setting, they weren't public, they weren't announced to the public. We came to know about them at family school, but this wasn't an item for the public to engage in or for there to be public discourse around decisions that are impacting our whole community.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Can I just add one thing?
It's my understanding that there will be mixed age classrooms, more mixed age classrooms at Catalino next year. So again, it should be a public discussion. I personally, because I have a kid at Catalino as well, have friends who don't want their kids in mixed age classrooms. They have intentionally chosen to have their children at Catalino so that they're not in mixed age classrooms. And that is the solution for the problem, is to create more mixed age classrooms at Catalino. So again, it's polling the public, polling the communities is important, and it creates a discourse where we feel safe and taken care of, and our students feel like they're heard as well. I don't want my kids saying they hate us.
Well, we certainly don't either, and I don't know where that's coming from.
I think it's important for everyone to understand that there are mixed age classrooms in all our schools next year because of declining enrollment. That is the reason why we have mixed age classrooms, is declining enrollment.
But that is the reason that you have them in Catalino. Carpinteria.
So, and Summerlin.
Right, no, but Summerlin and Carpinteria Family School are built on a mixed age pedagogy. It is a different way to teach. And Carpinteria Family School is set up. It's set up and has been successful teaching mixed age classrooms. So you're going to put teachers who are not used to teaching mixed age classrooms in charge of mixed age classrooms. I mean, like, it's just not, it doesn't make any sense.
Andy,
Thank you.
Respectfully, I also, as perhaps the only non-CFS associated person here, just to your point, I was not privy to a meeting with CFS, nor were other members of the public. I would have attended if I had known such a thing. So I'm trying as a member of the public to be engaged on this topic because it does matter to me and other Carpinteria citizens.
I appreciate that, and we've probably, having this back and forth like this is not as productive, because this is not, it can be, but it's not the way that a business meeting is held. A back and forth is something we can discuss. That's what the in-person meetings with one or two board members, not with an entire board. So where we can actually have a discussion. But I appreciate you all speaking tonight, and I think we all have taken your comments to heart. And I just want to reassure everyone that no decision has been made. The budget is, as you see, the budget's a difficult thing. And fortunately, the trajectory is more promising than it was looking. So, I don't mean to give any false hope, but I just want you to know that a decision has not been made. So I hope you can that gives you some reassurance. I'm sure it doesn't give you total, but and I'm happy to come and meet with I think any of us is happy to come meet with you all again, and we can continue this discussion. Okay, thank you.
Put it on the agenda. That's what we're asking. Not making a decision is actually harder for
Okay,
families.
thank you
Harder
guys.
for families.
We're gonna move.
They have to decide what to do with their kids next year. It's harder for families.
Okay.
Make a decision so that they can have a contingency plan.
We're not going to make a decision right now. It's not on the agenda. We're not going to make a decision. So we're going to move on to the LCAP, and we're going to get a item. Oh, we need a vote. Okay. So can I get a motion to approve the first reading of the budget?
I move to approve the first reading of the budget.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Okay, we'll move on to the item E3, the LCAP local indicators presentation.
Every year, we're required to present our local indicators, and the indicators are actually how we share the measures in progress of meeting the requirements of the local control funding formula. The state has 8 priorities, and there are several priorities that are included in the local indicators. That's on the next page. It's whether we've appropriately assigned teachers, implementation of state academic standards, parent and family engagement, school climate, and access to a broad course of study. The other indicators 4, 5, and 8 will be presented in the LCAP. Our first indicator is the measure of appropriately assigned teachers across the curriculum areas, and also includes having appropriate materials and safe, clean, and functional school facilities. This has not changed. If you'll move to the next slide. This has not changed over the year, with the exception of we have less total teacher misassignments from 22-23 to 23-24. We have 90% of our teachers are assigned appropriately. The 10% that are not assigned, it's due to two major reasons. One is we've hired DLI teachers that are still working on their B-CLAD, and as I reported before, we have special ed teachers that have been in our district for years that now need to attend classes to receive a specialized certification for working with students who have autism, and they're still working on that. The next priority is the implementation of state academic standards in content areas, and they've rate them according to where you're at in your district, whether you're exploring that content area or its full implementation and sustainability, and this hasn't changed in the last 3 years. We're still at full implementation and sustainability for all of our core content areas. The next area is the district's progress in making sure that our instructional materials are aligned with the adopted academic standards and the frameworks, and that, again, has not changed. We are fully implemented. The next priority is related to identifying areas for policies that support delivering instruction and making sure it's aligned to our academic standards. Again, this has not changed in the last 3 years. This is also adding additional content areas, CTE, health, PE, visual and performing arts, and world language. And we're still not at sustainability for health education related to the health programs at the elementary level. We're still evaluating those programs. The next item is related to professional development, and this is really based on professional development funding. In the last few years, we've not had enough professional development funding to support sustainability, but we have implemented professional learning for individual teachers as well as for groups of teachers in content areas, and we will continue to look for professional development funds to provide sustainability for our teachers. The next priority is related to parent and family engagement, in which we have full implementation of sustainability, and that has been similar in the last 2 years. We looked at the strengths of our family and parent engagement. We looked at the Healthy Kids Survey results, show that 93% of our parents report that they feel welcome at their students' school site. We continue to focus on family engagement as a priority. We provide many opportunities for families to participate. We have monthly luncheons with families and students. Each site has a coffee with principal. We have a variety of open houses, back to school nights, specialized content nights like math nights for families. So we continue to focus on developing activities in which we can bring families back to schools, working with students. And then our area that we continue to look at for growth is increasing the participation of underrepresented families, specifically their participation in site decision-making opportunities like parent groups and site council and the ELAC. Our current stage of implementation remains the same, and it's a full implementation and sustainability. We're still looking for more professional development funds to support professional learning to teachers in this area. When we look at our family engagement related to student outcomes, 96% of parents report that schools encourage parents to be active partner in their child's education. I've also earlier shared those different opportunities, parent-teacher conferences, back-to-school nights, open house. And again, our focus will continue on increasing participation from underrepresented families. The next item is related to specifically for decision-making, seeking input from parents for decision-making. And we have full implementation in building the capacity of principals and teachers to engage families in any advisory groups that are making decisions at the school site. And that's related to parent groups, school site councils, ELAC, DLAC, as well as our district-wide Parent Advisory Council. And at the next evaluation of input for decision-making, we looked at the Healthy Kids Survey, in which 77% of parents report that schools allow and welcome parent input. We'd like to increase that response rate to 90%, so we'll continue to focus on specifically underrepresented families in school site councils and the parent support groups. The sixth priority is related to school climate. We annually administer the California Healthy Kids Survey to students in grades 5, 7, 9, and 11. And we look at their perception of school connectedness, academic motivation, and their perception of school safety. And our expectation is more than 90% of students will report that they're connected and motivated and feel safe at school. And we meet all that, meet those goals with the exception of 7th grade in school connectedness and academic motivation. That's lower than reported than the other grades. So we'll continue to monitor the progress of middle school in those areas. And we've identified that as a need, that the 7th graders reported a lower rate of school connectedness. And our area of strength is that for the rest of the grades, we have a high rate of school connectedness, academic motivation, and safety. And then specific strategies that we put in place to increase continuous improvement for school climate is that we continue to use the positive behavioral intervention strategies at the middle school level. We have a social skills curriculum at grades 7 and 8. We offer or hold assemblies for student recognition. We have early release time for teacher collaboration to monitor student progress and adjust instructional practices. And then we've increased our extended learning opportunities after school. We have soccer, volleyball, fishing, skateboarding, surfing, and cooking. The last priority is related to the access to a broad course of study. And we use our student information system, ARIES, that tracks our course selection and enrollment for all students, particularly students with exceptional needs and their unduplicated student count. And all of our students have access to all of the courses that we provide, and there's no difference across the schools or student groups. And we don't have any barriers for students to choose the courses that they wish to participate in, and there's no need to change our actions because we've been successful in encouraging students to choose the courses that they wish to take for that school year. Any questions about local indicators? Okay, so now we'll move to the LCAP, which shows the indicators for student outcomes and student achievement. And you'll recall that last June at this time, you approved the LCAP for 3 years, the goals and the outcomes, student outcomes for 24 to 27. And those goals reflect our 5 district goals in student achievement, student well-being and parent participation, college readiness and careers, college and career readiness, facilities, and special education student achievement. This report tonight merely reflects the progress of the last school year because that's the latest state data, and then we have some local data that's more current from this school year. So we begin with reminding you of, for this particular goal, 1, to increase student achievement, we focused on particular activities that were implemented at the elementary level, at the middle school level, and at the high school level. And then our outcomes are identified in Goal 1 for student achievement. And what we looked at is our current outcomes. And for the state data, it's 23-24. So for the CASP, the 24 data indicates that we showed growth for English language arts in all grades, 5th, 8th, and 11th. Those are our exit grades. We also showed growth for English language learners, economically disadvantaged, and students with disabilities, those disaggregated student groups. The gap between white and Hispanic students have decreased. The gap between economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged students has also decreased. And then for our third grade star reading level, we're at the grade level that we expect for students, and that's at 4th grade. By the end of their 3rd grade, they're reading at 4th grade. This is local data that is current, and we use a Renaissance Star Reading, which is an online assessment that specifically measures student growth in specific reading skills. These are the skills that they've mastered. So that is decoding skills and reading comprehension skills. The expectation is that they are at if they're in kindergarten, then the expectation is that they'd be at that grade plus 9 months, so it'd be K9. 1st grade would be 1-9, 2nd grade 2-9. So you'll see that when you look at Aliso, Catalina, and Summerlin, that most of our students currently are at and above grade level based on the STAR reading. So that's for decoding and comprehension. And then our next goal is related to math achievement. Again, for 2024 data, so that's the CASP, the statewide testing. Students met or exceeded the standard in all our 3 exit grades. We showed growth in economically disadvantaged students showed growth. Students with disabilities showed growth. Our gap between white and Hispanic students have decreased, and the gap, again, between economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged students have also decreased. And then, although our math grade level, our STAR math for 3rd grade decreased 0.2, our students are still at the expectation at 3.9. And then if you look at the current data, which is this school year, and again, it's similar to Renaissance Star Reading. This is Renaissance Star Math, and it's online assessment that measures math, computation skills, and problem-solving skills. And again, our expectation is that for math, you're at the grade level plus 9 months. So you would be at 1.9 to be at grade level. And you can see that, or above, and you can see that most of our grade levels, most of our students are performing at or above grade level for math at this point in time on the STAR Math test. Our next goal is continues to be with achievement, but it focuses specifically on English language learners. And we saw progress with decreasing the long-term English language learners. However, we still need work with our reclassification rates and our English learner progress. For student grades, we showed an increase of 8% for the GPA for middle school and 14% for the GPA for high school. For all students. In our next, the next slide, it's still related to student achievement, and we see the percent of teachers appropriately assigned that's increased by 3.2%, and we've met all the goals for the access to instructional materials, full implementation of all our academic standards, and 100% of our students have access and are enrolled in a broad course of study. Our next goal refers to student well-being, a positive school culture, and partnership with parents. And these are the specific actions that we implemented to reach that goal. And then the progress we've made for the first year is that our goal was to have more than 90% of students report that they were connected, motivated, and high expectations. And for this school year, 24-25, we've met that goal. And we'll continue to focus on ensuring that more than 90% of students continue to report that they're connected, motivated, and have high expectations, as well as school safety. Not more than 90% of our students report that schools are safe. And so we've met that goal, but we'll continue to implement activities to ensure that 90% of students continue to report that data. What's disappointing is our average attendance at school events has decreased for parents. So we'll continue on we continue on implementing activities and encouraging parents to participate in the activities that are specifically held for parents to enjoy at the school site with their students. And then our attendance rates have also been disappointing. Our average daily attendance has decreased 0.5%, and our expectation is 95%. And our chronic absenteeism has also increased 0.5%, so it's going in the wrong direction. However, we've met the goal for our expulsion rate, and our suspension is the same. So we need to continue working on increasing student attendance in school. Goal 3 is directly related to graduation and students being ready for college and careers. These are the strategies that have been implemented. And then our annual report indicates that our graduation rate has increased 0.1%, but we still expect 100% of our students graduate. Now, our class size is small. We have 139 students graduating, of which 4 students will not graduate tomorrow, but they have been enrolled in adult ed, and we do expect them to complete their GED, but they are not considered in the graduation rate. We've increased our students graduates meeting the UC and CSU requirements, and we've also increased student enrollment in AP, honors, and dual enrollment. We've also increased our graduates who've met the UC, CSU requirements and completed at least one CTE pathway. And we've also increased the number of students earning the state seal of biliteracy. Our next goal is related to safe facilities that are updated and well-maintained for student and staff. These are the strategies that were implemented at each level. And then we use the Healthy Kids Survey to monitor students and staff and parents' perceptions of cleanliness and maintenance, and our expectation is more than 90% of students, staff, and parents will report that schools are clean and well-maintained. Although it's increased for students, we still are not at 90% for staff. 90% of our parents reported that. And then for the Measure U projects, we're proud that the Catalina Learning Center was successfully completed in December, and that we're in the planning stages for the TK and K building at Aliso. It's at DSA, and we expect to begin construction next fall. Our last goal is related specifically to the disaggregated group of students with disabilities, and we focused on increasing their performance on the CASP for math and ELA. These were our strategies that we implemented. and we're happy to report that both in math and ELA, our special ed students increased their performance, but we still expect a higher performance rate. We're going in the right direction, but we've not met the goal yet. But again, this is year 1 of 3 years. So overall, I'd say that the progress has been very good, and we continue to need to focus on our disaggregated groups of students, and particularly for them, it's their increase in English language proficiency, as well as continue supporting their math and English language arts performance.
Questions?
No, I was just going to say, last night at the Catalino promotion ceremony, those students that gave their speeches in Spanish and in English, it's, you know, they're making progress. I mean, it's amazing how adept they have become at both languages.
It's exciting to see many of the 5th grade students who've been in DLI since
Right.
kindergarten
Yes.
present their report
No,
in
it was amazing.
Spanish, and it was very literate.
Yes, and what I like is there's no sense of an accent with, you know, it's pretty impressive.
What do you attribute the lower parent attendance in events to? Because I noticed that was a thing at the after prom party this year. It was difficult to get parent contributions and also just participation, and so which is one of those things that's usually not hard to do.
Yes. I think we need to change the way we're outreaching to certain parent groups. We can't continue to do what we've done in the past, and so we have to look at different ways that we are going to motivate parents to participate. In the past, it worked, and we had a number of parents, a number of parents participate, particularly in the high school.
Yeah.
And that's declined, so we're going to have to look at different ways of encouraging that parent participation and not depend on the same few who participate over and over and over again. So expand our outreach. I think it also has to do with, in the previous years, we were able to fund social workers with our COVID money, and we really depend on the social workers to develop relationships with our families. And this past year, we did not have social workers. So I think that was part of the reason why we didn't have certain groups of parents participating.
Okay. Anybody else? Aaron? Good? Okay. All right, so I will open up a hearing on our LCAP. If there's any public comment on the LCAP, please step up to the podium.
Okay, so once again, to provide any thorough analysis on the LCAP document in a 3-minute public comment seems unrealistic. The LCAP contains 105 pages and thousands of data points. But upon review, one theme became rapidly clear. CUSD's internal measuring tools, such as teacher-assigned grades, GPAs, or school awards, are in conflict with the district's external measuring tools, the ones that exist, such as state assessment data, college acceptance rates, ed code requirements, and routine K-12 safety practices across the state. So with this in mind, union leadership will provide a few observations until our time runs out. Where the LCAP addresses connectiveness between CUSD and families in the community, it seems that CUSD's conclusions do not tell the whole story or even most of it. On many occasions, CUSD has been implored to better understand why so many families in the community forego their access to free public education. Why do so many families choose to instead spend significant portions of their income to send their children to alternative educational environments? If the district's connectiveness scores included the rapidly growing number of community families that do not consider CUSD a viable educational option, the district's cherry-picked connectedness scores, which are already less than remarkable, would be considerably lower. It's also observed that the LCAP contains none of the reasons cited by CUSD families who rated connectiveness low. Perhaps our district officials could learn a lot from those who don't share their unique experience, their privilege, or position in the district. Examples of conflicting academic achievement data can be found throughout the LCAP as well. For example, a closer review of just pages 35 through 37 is pretty revealing. The district reports that between 23-24 and 24-25, there's been an 8% increase in the number of students enrolled in AP, honors, and dual enrollment courses. The district reports that there was an increase in the number of graduates who met UC and CSU requirements and at least one CTE pathway. Yet, on the same pages, significantly conflicting data is found. For example, the graduation rate has dropped. There's been over a 5% drop in college and career preparedness. There's been a drop in students completing at least one CTE pathway. There's been a 10% drop in students even enrolled in CTE pathways. Or the high school dropout rate, which doubled last year, has shown very, very little change. Another area of conflicting data can be found when examining school safety and cleanliness. After deep and unnecessary cuts to the district's custodial staff and campus safety personnel at the end of last year, parents, teachers, and support staff increasingly report concerns associated with school safety and cleanliness. Yet the district's LCAP reports, quote, there were no substantive differences.
Your time is up.
That's a shame. Thank you.
Okay, any more comments on the public hearing portion of the LCAP? All right, I'll close the hearing and we will take a vote on the first reading of the LCAP presentation. Can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we will move on to F for policies. And first reading of Board Policy 5131, Conduct. Board is asked to approve the first reading of the updated Board Policy 5131, Conduct. Board believes that all students have a right to be educated in a safe and positive learning environment free from disruptions. Students shall be expected to exhibit appropriate conduct that does not infringe upon the rights of others or interfere with the school program while on school grounds, going to or coming from school, at school activities, or using district transportation. Any public comment on Board Policy 5131? Seeing as none, can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve Board Policy 5131.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Move on to G, Business Operations Facility and Warrants. We're being asked to approve the warrants for the period of May 23rd through June 5th in the amount of $350,829.71. Warrants are issued once a week on Thursdays. The report format shows check number, check date, payee, brief account description, payment comment.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
We need public comments on G. Any
All G,
item on G.
okay, I'm sorry, thank you. Any public comments on G, Business Operations Facilities?
Yes, thank you. This evening, the district reports $23,384 spent on its fact-finding effort. Certainly, this is just a portion of CUSD's expenditures claimed by Ms. Rigby's anti-labor lawyer friends in LA, the F3 law firm, making their total take for the last 12 months approximately $725,000. Thus far, the district reports having spent approximately $23,000 on services associated with the district's fact-finding preparations and participation. We suspect it costs CUSD more than that, but even if CUSD's costs stop there, the union, with just one teacher and one union representative, managed to carry the day at the cost of approximately $600 to $800. Just to give you a point of comparison, $600 to $800 is what we invested in getting the same agreement, and you all invested at this moment on the record, $23,000, and we are pretty sure that's darn low. Where the union sent 2 individuals to the fact-finding, CUSD's team included 9. The district fact-finding team contained the most senior executive analyst from School Services of California, a private consulting firm that claims to have, quote, the strongest legislative team in Sacramento. What must that have cost an hour? We haven't seen that bill yet. Did the fact-finding costs on the evening's warrants include any of the costs associated with the attendance of the 3 highest paid administrators who were there, Ms. Rigby, Mr. Caff, and Ms. Lopez? There were also 3 very well-paid lawyers from F3 Law Firm. This firm charges approximately $475 per hour per attorney. And as an aside, how many hours did these well-paid lawyers spend cooking up that fact-finding binder? A true work of propaganda that you're now throwing all over the community that compares the district's generosity to other districts based on average daily attendance when we are a basic aid district, whose very low student enrollment makes comparisons based on average daily attendance look grossly inflated. And you all know that, but you cooked it into the book, and now you'll share it with the community. As we look at the items contained on the district's warrant report and assume that the district officials do the same, are any of you asking if the rest of these expenditures are any more or less effective? You know, we're hearing about hardships and lack of money and programs closing and schools being shut. Are any of you asking if the rest of these expenditures are any more or less effective when compared to the district's fact-finding team? Perhaps you should. Thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the warrants?
I'll move to approve the warrants.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item 2 is a contract with Top Epoxy Flooring for epoxy flooring coating in the central kitchen storage room, funded through the Kitchen Infrastructure and Training Grant. The cost is $6,312.50 and will be paid with restricted kitchen infrastructure and training grant funding. Can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, and I believe this is for the new storage area that was recently done, which is going to be very nice and
Very
a
nice.
lot more efficient kitchen. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item 3 is a subcontract agreement between the district and M&M Concrete Contractor for tree removal and concrete replacement at the high school. And this is to remedy a tree that's been lifting up some concrete sidewalks. Will include demolition, new concrete walkway, tree removal. 2 vendors were contacted, and the low bid, one was at $24,814, the other was at $17,972. And we're being asked to approve that bid from M&M Concrete Contractor. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the subcontract agreement.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, move on to item H, Measure U. Any public comment on Measure U? Okay, so we're being asked to approve approval of McGillivray for the demolition of the Aliso Canalino old portables. And the district had a job block. I think we had 4 or 5 attendees. We received 2 bids, one from McGillivray and one from EJS. And McGillivray came in low at $322,379 versus EJS at $411,000 even. So we're being asked to approve the contract with McGillivray. Can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, and this will be paid for with Measure U bond funds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move on to item I, personnel. Any public comment on personnel?
Alrighty, it's the peak of the hiring season, and it's coming to a close. And guess what CUSD's personnel report reveals? Another administrator has been hired. One teacher at Aliso has been hired while another one retires. And the district has also hired one new SPED teacher, but has lost two SPED teachers, further exacerbating CUSD's inability to provide either consistent, high-quality special education services or program. While the district quietly announced extraordinary changes to how the special education program will be implemented at the secondary level in 25-26, it didn't do it publicly, it did it with teachers at Carpinteria Middle School. This evening's report contains no hiring actions for classified special education instructional aides, or for that matter, no classified employees were hired at all. We fear the personnel report continues to serve as a clear indicator of the self-imposed hardship CUSD continues to create for itself by refusing to invest properly and legally, by the way, in the district teachers and support staff. Item I also contains the approval of the impasse agreement. And, well, in summary, I mean, it is about time, isn't it? As shared earlier, this should have been wrapped up weeks ago, and it would have been had the district's lawyers paid $475 an hour, not arbitrarily removed portions of our agreement without telling anyone. We're to assume you weren't aware of that, right? Although union leadership foiled the district's attempts to remove previous commitments from the agreement, the resolution required the intervention of the state fact finder and an additional 6 days. The agreement was eventually finalized on May 15th, still 11 days before the last board meeting held on May 28th, when CUSD again dropped the ball, failing to either agendize or approve the agreement. Must have been a tough pill to swallow, Mr. Schaefer. So the approval happens this evening, and as a result, employees will now have to wait until June 30th to receive any of the additional compensation they earned during the last 2 school years. Again, to be absolutely clear, nothing either legally or administratively prevented the school district from agendizing this approval of the fact-finding agreement at the last school board meeting. CUSD was notified about the union's ratification process. It was notified that the outcome would be communicated prior to the board meeting, and the outcome was communicated prior to the board meeting. Union leadership commends the patience demonstrated by district employees. We continue to show up day after day and serve the community, regardless of the insults, the games, the unethical behavior exhibited by district officials and the lawyers who do their bidding. Thank you.
Okay,
Talk about insults.
A rose is a rose by any other name.
I'm glad we're turning over a new leaf. So can I get a motion to approve the personnel summary?
I'll move to approve the personnel summary.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item 2, I2 is AB 1200 disclosure for the 23-24 and 24-25 and 25-26 salary increases for the CUS or for cause local 2216 represented and employees in accordance with AB 1200, AB 2756, and GC 3547.5. Public school districts must bring a disclosure of proposed bargaining agreement to the board for approval. The agreement outlines the terms of the agreement, costs, and future year impact. The board is asked to approve the following salary increases for all cause employees, cause local 2216 certificated and classified represented employees. The certificated and classified salary schedules will be revised to reflect an increase of 5% effective July 1st, 2025. Certificated and classified unit members will receive a one-time off-schedule sum equivalent to 4% of their base salary for the 24-25 school year. This payment will be extended to members who retired during the 23-24 and 24-25 school years. Beginning with the 25-26 plan year, the district will contribute the maximum allowable contribution not to exceed the district contribution to the district paid plan to an individual HSA account for any eligible unit member enrolled in the HAS 5000 health plan. Certificated special education teachers shall receive an annual stipend of $3,000. All currently employed instructional assistants will be moved to step 13 effective July 1st, 2025. The 2024-25 salary increase is approximately $820,015, and the 25-26 salary increase is approximately $1,091,849. These increases will be paid from general funds, restricted funds, and other funds. May I get a motion to approve?
I approve AB 1200.
I'll second.
And I'm grateful that we've negotiated a fair salary increase for our employees, and looking forward to a positive environment moving forward. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Future agenda items. Any public comment?
I'll be very brief. We see that the proposed budget presentation tonight that eliminating the 2-3 family school class is indeed under consideration. We have appreciated the on-campus meetings we have had with Superintendent Rigby and Andy Schieffer. I know you know that because we have thanked you multiple times at this podium. I was really surprised by your reaction, Andy. Now that we are entering the end of the school year and votes on the budget are taking place, we are looking for clear answers. We ask you to put the proposal to eliminate grades from CFS on a future agenda as a standalone item so we can have a public discussion and a recorded vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At approximately 12 of the last, this evening union leadership is going to return to a concept of transparent remuneration for CUSD board members. For those unfamiliar with the term, board remuneration can be any form of transparent compensation provided to a board member that recognizes the sacrifice and/or compensates them for their service on the school board. At approximately 12 of the last 24 school board meetings, union leadership has requested a transparent examination of remuneration, either offered, received, or considered by the school board. And employees shared their belief that some form of transparent remuneration could help address the obvious challenges that CUSD is facing when the highest positions responsible for decision-making clearly do not understand or share the lived experience of the vast majority of district students, their families, their economic experiences, and their cultural background. Oddly, the board has never responded to our request to place remuneration on a future board agenda. It seems the board likes things just the way they are, that being board participation only from those like yourselves who enjoy a level of economic stability that most of the community do not. It frees you up to spend your time this way. Union leadership thought it stopped there until we filed an information request to examine what, quote, less than transparent benefits school board members might be receiving. And in the process of reviewing the information produced by the district, we found a few interesting irregularities. You'll see at the time, the district never agendized remuneration, and the community thought that board member participation was based purely on a voluntary basis. And at that time, that we all thought this for years, Mr. Schaefer has been quietly receiving the district's health care plan for he and his family now for many years. According to the records we received, Mr. Schaefer paid for his health care plan according to the same schedule as district employees until 2023-24. In that year, only after the union started making waves about its information request did board member Schaefer actually pay the bill approximately 11 months into receiving the cycle. The date would be August 9th, 2024. Every year before that, you had paid monthly like every other district employee. And then there was one grand payment at month 11, which makes it certainly, we're looking forward to your explanation, by the way. It certainly makes it look like you received the health care plan for 11 months before dropping a dime on it. And maybe that was unintentional. Maybe you knew what was going on. We don't know, but we look forward to your explanation. Certainly, you should be explaining what's going on here. Why would you be, Mr. Schaefer, provided payment options that are not provided to others who purchase health care in the district? Or is this simply an accounting error that somehow the paperwork just looks off? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hotchner. Appreciate that. Got to dig for lies anywhere you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Put it on the agenda.
Okay, nothing else for future agenda items. Board calendar, anything, Monica? Nope. Okay,
Tomorrow's a big day.
it is.
Tomorrow's
Yes,
a big day.
tomorrow's a big day.
So it's a big day, so I want
Yeah.
everybody to remember that we're at least so at 10, right? Middle school but is at 3, but you're gonna be there earlier, right? And then the high school at 6.
Yeah.
So we come early, right?
Yes.
And we're all there.
Yeah.
Right, okay. That's a big day.
Yeah, big day.
Most important.
The positive parts of it.
Okay, any board announcements?
I was just going to say that there have been a lot of activities going on, of which I've tried to participate in a lot of them. My favorite is Coffee with the Principal. Goodbye. Which are great, and I would encourage parents to participate in those. They're all before school, and you can sit and ask your questions of the principal, as well as other things that we go to. I think that's a good way to participate and see what's going on in this great community. And I think the majority of the people in this community do know that our schools are good schools.
Agreed, 100%, Sally. Thank you. I'm looking forward to the promotions and the graduation tomorrow, and we have, that I'd just like to reiterate about the senior awards ceremony. It was really kind of neat. I was sitting up in the bleachers in the corner and watching all the parents, and the reaction when Mr. Cornejo announced the total value of all the scholarships this year was almost stunned silence, because $500,000 for our little tiny high school is quite an accomplishment. I think it's a testament not only to our programs, but especially to the students and the work that they put in, and just the dedication that they've had and made.
And the generosity of our community.
And the generosity of our
Yes.
community, yeah.
CEF gave at least 80,000.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I didn't say this before, but like the mission scholars, of which we started, I don't know, how many years ago?
I want to say
5.
5.
Yeah. I think there were 2. There were at least 8 this year, and that scholarship gives each of those 8 students $8,000 a year.
Yeah.
Which is pretty phenomenal. Again, in our small school district, that the community is really stepping forward and giving back.
And I know that there's been some, discussion about having 2 valedictorians and 2 salutatorians. Mr. Cornejo has a algorithm that he's been working on for a long time, and it's so accurate that to have 2 ties like that is remarkable. After 4 years of school, and it's really only fair to do it that way.
Makes us proud.
It makes us proud. Yeah. So that's great. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. So with that, I think we're adjourned. Thank you.